Less than 30 seconds now in regulation. Could this take extra time? 16 seconds. Here's Dyal. Send it up the point, Jay Lalu. Call midget now, but Matt, 6 seconds, 5, Dalfan coming out. He gets around him, 2 seconds. He's got to do it quick. Shoot, the scores, 1 second left.
All right, and we are back after, is it 1 week off? Is it only one? I don't know, Tony, something like that. Can you remember?
Nope.
Yeah, well, close enough.
I think it was one.
Yes, we are here with Austin, none other than Admiral Libtard himself.
Hello.
Greetings,
Hello, Austin.
Admiral.
How you doing tonight?
Good.
How's the Navy? New Jersey Navy.
Great.
Yeah, it's going well for you guys post-trade deadline, huh?
The
A little bit.
sailors are looking good.
Yeah, a little bit. We should go back at some point to that episode and gauge some of the reactions to the trades and whatnot, some of the things KP, myself, and Tony all said, predictions, all that nature. So, because right now, you guys seem to be the clear and only winner from the trade deadline stuff. So,
Yeah.
I'm sure you're feeling good at the moment, right?
Oh, definitely. And Lucic is back. That's the most important thing.
Yeah. Something like that, Austin. Something like that.
Oh, he's back.
All right, so we're going to do things a little bit differently this week because we are, we're into the playoffs now officially. So rather than doing the full normal set of reviewing games from the previous week and, doing predictions and all that stuff for individual games, we're going to take things a little bit different this time. We're going to do a bit of a season retrospective for each of the 6 teams. And then we're going to get into some playoff previews for the 2 matchups we've got coming up. And then also some eventual finals previews for, obviously, when we get there. So before we get into that, just a reminder to those that are listening and playing in the LHL. The playoffs are a little bit different this year just because we only have 2 game days a week. So we're still running with the same games 1 and 2 on the first night, 3 and 4 on the second night, and then 5 through 7 on the third night. But that third night is going to stretch into a second week now. So it'll be Tuesday, Friday, Tuesday will be the first round. And then Friday, Tuesday, Friday will be the second round. So the playoffs are going to be a little bit more spread out than what we're typically used to. But we are fortunate enough to now have Nova Star and Never Lucky both streaming. So I believe all of the games are going to be streamed this time, which will be nice. So we don't have the teams officially in the schedule yet, but it doesn't really matter. You'll find both teams and both matchups going at the same time, one on DTMB and one on Capital One. We are going to request that everybody who is around that doesn't need to be in the server is watching on one of those broadcasts, as we do actually have them now. There have been, towards the end of the season, some server-related issues where some games were getting a little bit laggy and whatnot in some circumstances, so we're trying to minimize that as much as possible while the playoffs are going on. So please, if you're just a spectator, go to one of the streams, support Nova, support Never Lucky, and support healthy and lag-free servers. So, with that, I think we can get right into it. What do you guys think? We good to go?
Yeah.
Nice.
Go for it.
Nice. Okay, so let's run through, and we'll go through all the teams in the reverse order of standings, and we'll just touch on how their season ended up, and sort of what we think they could have changed to maybe turn their seasons around. Or how well we think they're going to fare in the playoffs with the roster they have. So we'll start with the last place team, which was the LA Wildfire. Zam is the GM. So through 25 games, they ended up getting 23 points, had a 7-18 overall record, which not the worst. For a while, they were looking like they were going to be one of the worst ever LHL teams. It was not looking very good, but actually after the major trade that they made at the trade deadline. They did have a pretty reasonable record. I think they went 3-5 or something like that down the stretch. So better than what they had previously, and I think 1 or 2 of those were OT games as well. So they were able to scrape together a few more points. But the team that started out with Zam, Kiwi, Jay Lalu, and Johnny Hockey and PK finished with Zam, Quacky, Narg, Ike, and Johnny. So a lot of turnover on that team, and that doesn't even include the fact that they had Taser for a little while and ended up trading him away as well. So I guess on the whole, I'll throw it to you guys here for some opinions. Obviously, this team didn't turn out the way that Zam wanted it to, right? I think a lot of people, including Zam himself, had higher expectations of what we would or could see out of Zam and the rest of his squad there, the team he drafted. I don't think anybody expected them to really struggle quite as much as they did, but and a lot of people throughout the season brought up several times how they thought Zam should have made moves sooner. Do you think there's really anything they could have done? And we'll look at it from a post-deadline perspective since we've touched on a lot of that pre-deadline stuff already, but post-deadline, do you think there's really any way they could have worked further or in a different direction to have made this team a little bit more competitive?
No, I thought they were all right after the deadline. I thought that was probably as good as they could get that roster with, the pieces they had.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think they got good value, like we spoke about at the trade deadline episode, right? They got good value out of the pieces that they had, and they moved, and getting back Quacky and Narg and Ike. Narg, obviously, he's not PK. Nobody is. So they were definitely going to take a downgrade in net no matter what they did trading away PK. But Quacky was by far one of the most offensively dynamic players in the league this season, and he brought a lot to the table that they were lacking previously. And I thought actually he and Ike worked a lot better together than what I initially thought they would, and I'm sure worked better together than what most people thought they would. They at least in my mind have play styles that seem to be somewhat antithetical to one another, but they found a way to make it pretty efficient actually. And I think Ike's numbers went up by 0.3 or 0.4 points per game or something like that, and Quacky stayed about the same, right around 2.5. So they were both able to maintain their level of offensive performance. We definitely saw an uptick from Zam as well, who got half his points in the final 8 games of the season or something like that. So he definitely benefited as well. One thing I do want to ask both of you, in addition to all of this, is we saw D-Man Jerry come in the final day of games where they actually went 2-0. Tony, you played against them for one of those games. I can't remember if you played against the other one, Austin. Did you play LA on that final game day?
No.
No.
Okay, all right. But you did, Tony. Do you think D-Man Jerry was actually an improvement for that lineup over Johnny? Because if you look
I couldn't tell you from the one game, but yeah, Jerry, I can't believe he didn't get in. Or I think he got in on the day Lalu missed, and they got smashed those games. But no shit. So I don't know. I can't believe they never went back to him.
Yeah, and I know he can't believe that either. So, but yeah, I think he sent me something on the side at one point to show sort of how the team did when he was on the ice, and I believe they were 3-4 on the season with Jerry on the ice, and were 4 and whatever that ends up being, 4-14, I think, with Johnny on the ice. Obviously, Johnny's not the only reason why they weren't performing poorly or anything like that. I don't want to insinuate that, but it definitely seemed like they, at least with the team they had post-deadline, gelled a lot more with Jerry on the ice there, and you can tell because he's only a -2 compared to Johnny's -33, and there's a stark difference there, so... but Jerry had the benefit of not playing in a lot of those early games where the team was getting blown out. Well, not blown out, but
I mean,
losing
like I
a lot
said,
of games.
Jerry did also play in those 2 games that Lalu missed early on.
That is true, and the ones that
yeah.
Lalu missed were important. So I believe they lost both of those pretty substantially, if I remember correctly. But it's been a while, so
yeah, they got dismantled those games. Because back then it was just Lalu. He was the only threat on that team.
Yeah, for sure.
So missing him, that's yeah. Replacing him, Jerry shouldn't have come in to replace Lalu, but yeah, I could to replace Johnny. I don't know why that wasn't tried earlier.
Yeah, right.
Especially playing with like, Johnny's not like a defensive defenseman or anything. Neither Zam. You'd think Jerry at least can hold his own back there. It would have.
I think from a play style perspective, it made a little bit more sense to have Zam and Jerry together. Johnny just doesn't play as defensively of a style, and a lot of that's because he doesn't have the same ping that Jerry does. Or obviously Jerry's limited, and so is Tidge, in what they can do offensively just by nature of the fact that on a good day they have like 110 ping. So, obviously that's a big part of it. But Johnny just plays a more offensive style in general, as does Zam, and I think, and I'm sure both of you would agree with me, that in a lot of cases having two offensively minded defensemen can be more detrimental than it can help, because you can certainly get into a lot of situations where you're not playing enough defensively responsible hockey to cover for a lot of situations that you could if you have somebody who defaults a little bit more to being back and whatnot. Like, they had a lot more success with Zam and Taser working together for that reason, and I think Zam and Jerry kind of follows along with the same mindset and mentality there. And I think to a lesser extent as well, Austin, you and Marchie kind of work well off of each other like that, as you have a good rapport in terms of like, who's going up, who isn't going up, and making sure that people are back. So I think there's a lot to be said for that, and I don't think the chemistry between Johnny and Zam ever really clicked the same way that it kind of did with Jerry and Zam. But Austin, you've been quiet for most of this. I want to throw it over to you. What are your thoughts in general on LA, on the defense here and all that jazz we've talked about so far?
Oh, I don't know. Honestly, the defense didn't seem that bad, especially earlier in the season. I mean, my team played a lot of close games against them, a lot of 1-goal games.
But
how much of that was PK? We don't know.
I think LA, like early on, was letting up over like 10 shots a game or something crazy like that.
I think it was well over 10, but their goals against per game was actually one of the better for a short period of time. Anyway, they had the best goals against per game in the league, and they were last place.
Yeah.
Just to put that in perspective. So they they were really good at keeping games close and keeping games low scoring, but like Austin brought up, and like you said too, I mean, how much of that is PK? And since PK's moved to New Jersey, I think we've kind of answered that question already. So
yeah, it's tough for them missing. Like, they never really had. I mean, at the end they kind of did. They had two good forwards, but they until then were missing any sort of real offensive punch. Like, you look at all the good teams. There's a carry. That's not like a bad thing to have a guy carrying on your team, but like, the four teams that are in the playoffs all clearly have a guy doing that to varying degrees of success, because one of them's at 105 points.
Yeah, but
on the lower end is only at 54.
Yeah, you're looking at Paco, myself, Kilpessel, and Otto, and on every one of those teams, there's a main focal point. And even with LA, when they were playing better, you had a main focal point now in Quacky. And
well, I don't know. Ike and Quacky together. I mean, Quacky probably scored more than Ike there, but I don't know. That one was a weird one. Those were probably like the two most balanced forwards you can find around the league.
Yeah, that or the DMB Crab one was pretty balanced as well. So I think Crab was the better forward between the two.
Let that be a lesson, everybody. Don't balance your team. You got the two teams with balanced forwards miss the playoffs.
We'll get into that more once we get to your team, because that's an interesting perspective that I do want to talk about and get into more. But it is tough to say. Again, they went 3-5, I believe, over that final stretch of the season. So there's definitely an argument to say that having balanced forwards can still be competitive. And I would certainly describe the Seattle team as having been competitive. Like, you guys barely missed out on the playoffs. And if Goose is there for the whole season, you guys probably make it. Like, that's realistically the difference between you guys having made it and not. So I don't think outright you can say it didn't work. And I would say for this team, it did well for them. But I think they could have been a little bit better if they had been able to, or if they had shifted to using Jerry instead of Johnny. I think they could have had a couple more wins in there. Ultimately, I don't think it would have been enough to have been the difference maker between them making the playoffs and
maybe at the end, post deadline. Yes,
that's what I'm talking about. Post deadline, yeah.
That's kind of the thing. Is like, we talked about it many times. They needed to make some moves. That team was not good enough. Johnny was on forward with Kiwi for a while, and I like both those dudes enough. But that's
not an LHL starting forward
no,
combo. It's just not.
that is a terrible. That is like one of the worst forward pairs probably ever. Like it's not really fair to them. Not to call them like individually, like the players like that have their value, but like together on forward is not it.
Exactly. No, I completely agree with that, and that's like that. That's kind of the problem that we saw out of that team is you have an offensive pairing like that, and lo and behold, they're one of the lowest scoring teams ever while that pairing is out there together. Like it just it just all makes sense, right? Like it all ties together, the logic flows there. So I don't think it was ever really a mystery as to what the issues were on LA, but I think it was a bigger problem than I think a lot of people expected it to be. I'll put it that way. Like, is it surprising that they had those issues? No. Is it surprising that they lost as many games as they did because of those issues? I would say, yeah, probably. Like, I don't think they were a bad enough team to have ever been 1-8 or whatever it was that they were at their worst. So,
yeah, you'd think PK would have. He was stealing games.
He did his best.
But they were still losing. You'd think with that they would have come up with more wins. Yeah.
Yeah,
not blaming him at all there. I'm saying it's nuts that they didn't accidentally win one of those games that he kept within one. That a puck didn't just physic in.
Yep. So I'd have to check it, but I think they're either 1-8 or maybe even 1-10 at one point, which would mean over the course of the rest of the season they went 7-10 or 6-10. So much more respectable after the trade for Tays plus the trades at the deadline. So I think it just in total really adds credence to the argument that everybody had, which was just, make the move sooner. And unfortunately they didn't do that. And when it came time to the trade deadline, they made the right call, but that team just didn't have enough time to piece it back together. They were too far out at that point, which is unfortunate. They finished 13 points out of a playoff spot for reference. So not including any tiebreakers.
I had been trying to make a trade them since week 3 of the regular season, and they would just never go for sending me Kiwi, I guess, because of an assumed trade value he has with Otto. I don't really know.
Yeah, well, it turns out the trade value with Otto doesn't matter when you just pair him with a goalie that saves at 70% all the time. So
forward doesn't matter.
Yeah, which I guess kind of doesn't matter. Anyway, I think we've chatted about this team enough. We've gone over a lot of the same things every week. It feels like it's basically the same discussion as it was last time with them. So we'll move on unless you guys have any other closing thoughts on them.
No, team at the end wasn't too bad. It's too bad they didn't have Quacky and Ike the whole time. Would have been interesting.
It would have been a lot more interesting to see this team from the start of the season, because I think this team actually would have had a chance to get through to the playoffs and or at least have been contending on the last day. That would have been really exciting. I mean, we had 3 teams already contending for 2 spots in the last day, so I can't really complain about that. But it would have been really cool if we were, in a spot where we had all 4. So,
I mean, that trade only happened because Colorado started spiraling downwards. So I don't really know how much you can.
Yeah, who knows?
Yeah, they should have made a deal sooner.
If they ever even make that move,
Yeah,
especially not earlier when they were still winning.
They might have just sat on it if Colorado hadn't decided to make a move.
I think that would have been a big mistake. I mean, I would have understood why kind of they would have sat on it because at that point there wasn't much for them to gain. So, kind of understood the logic. But at the same time, just for the sake of maintaining a competitive and fielding a competitive roster, I feel like as a GM at a certain point, you have an obligation to do that regardless of the situation you're in and the personal relationships you have with your players. There is at some point where you have to draw the line and say that he
dumped Lalu pretty quick, I guess.
He did, which, I honestly, I thought that was a mistake, and I still kind of maintain that was a mistake. I don't think that was the move that they needed to make.
No, I feel like they could have swung for Ike way or
the move I was
making.
Week 3
trade. Just if they swung Ike and Lalu together, that would have looked fine.
Yeah. So that deal was Ike. It was Ike and Narg for PK and Kiwi was the deal.
Yeah. I think that earlier on would have been better for them. But hindsight's 2020. It is what it is at this point. So, all right, shall we move on to Seattle?
Shall we?
Shall we? So
Why
speaking of
not?
balanced teams,
Almost.
Seattle really close to making the playoffs. Unfortunately, just didn't get there on the final day. I apologize for that. We kind of fucked you guys by losing to Boston.
And physicking that one into our net and demoralizing us.
Yeah, that was Cap's fault. So I'm not
Well,
gonna
actually,
say sorry
you
for
scored
that.
one off of Goose's stick, the game winner. You just hucked it from behind the net, and it bounced off the stick and went in.
Yeah, that one was
Yeah.
disappointing, but that's not as bullshit as the physics goal
Yeah.
that went in. Like those
But
things
I
are
mean, like,
fucking stupid.
I bet people are probably beside, like, if I don't know, most people in this game I think would be more upset about something like you'd be like, oh, losing the season on that, but it's like you lose the season on day one when you get mercied, and you lose the season, when you go 1-4 to start it. Like that's
Yeah,
when you
and
lose the season to me. Like it's not on a physic here at the end. It's the fact that we weren't ever really good at any
yeah,
point, and
I,
then
I think that's something that people lose sight of all the time. You lose game 7 and everyone's like, oh, if we had done this one thing differently in game 7, and it's like, well, yeah, but what
yeah.
about the other 3 times you lost?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, it's a full.
know,
That's why you play 7. That's why it's
yeah,
a best of 7, so that it doesn't
exactly,
end on a bullshit bounce. It doesn't
exactly.
really. You
Eh,
needed to be better. If you get swept, it's it's like, well,
Yep,
we kept the games close. You never did enough.
yep,
Or if you lose in 7, it's like, well, you didn't do enough in game 2. Yeah,
yep.
whatever.
And that's why we play a 25-game regular season too, and
Yeah,
not just like a round robin best of 1 and then seed the playoffs off of that, right? So
yeah. So it's like,
every
yeah,
game is still worth 3 points, even if the points are more meaningful in the moment at the very end of the season than they are at the start. A win
yeah,
on day 1 is worth the same as a win on
the last day. Yeah.
the last day, whatever it is, right? So I think
So yeah,
that is the correct way to look
yeah.
at
So
it.
I'm not so gutted about the last day as when I think about it, just kind of like a ugh on the season. Just when it's not a whole lot of. There were a couple. There's that game against you guys, the 8-7. That's probably going to be a game I remember forever. But like, you know, that's not even a good example of a good team plan. That's just a wild game that happened at one point,
Yeah.
which is kind of unfortunate. When you're thinking of a season, you like to think, oh, I remember that stretch of games we had. Now,
No.
no, I just remember
No.
one game we came back when we were down 6-1 and we won it.
Yeah.
We miracled our way into it.
What about blanking auto?
That was a
Hey,
good
you
game,
guys
but
did
like
you guys did
whatever.
that I thought twice, right? Or was it just
That was
the one
once.
time?
No, it was once. We won 2,
Gotcha.
like it's like 2-1 or 2-0, something low.
Yeah, I thought there were some other close ones between you guys, but
I would have liked to play New Jersey in the playoff. That would have been fun.
I don't
But
want to play guy.
yeah.
Few do.
Nobody really wants to play Guy. He was plus 30 on the season, just to,
Yeah, Guy is
put some perspective in that. It's pretty
Yeah,
ridiculous.
it was awesome.
But
He was kicking himself. We lost a game to LA, one of the 3 games we used Guy in, but like he was the only guy playing well in that game. So like I don't even. He's kicking himself, but like fuck, like somebody else has to do something, which
so,
is sort of the thing of the balanced roster. If you want to get into that, of
yeah, so that's what I wanted to chat about now is Crab went with a very balanced approach this season as opposed to like most teams typically have, like a strength in one area and then, they're okay in a second area and then weak in the third area. So usually you have like good offense, decent defense and bad goaltending, or like good goaltending, okay offense and bad defense. You usually can't get
yeah, but
an
we weren't very
advantage
good
in
at all 3.
You guys were,
We were
okay at
below
all
average
3.
in all 3.
I mean, so Crab and DMB did play well together this season. Obviously,
Yeah.
you'd hope to have seen a little bit more out of them. Not to say that they didn't play well enough or anything, but you'd hope to have seen a little bit more like statistical production out of them over the course of the season.
Yeah, you need the more shot. We definitely. I think we're second worst offensive team here.
Yeah, in terms of generating shots, that was the biggest problem you guys had offensively. You guys had a really good like passing and transition game, but a lot of times once you got into the offensive zone, there was issues converting that into shots. And a lot of the times that you would get shots, at least from the games I would watch, a lot of them would be sort of exterior shots and not quite as deadly as what you'd want, like something up close and in the middle or stuff like that. So I think a lot of those perimeter shots kind of inflated I say inflated all the way up to 7.08
Yeah.
shots per game, but I don't think even that 7.08 isn't entirely indicative of the number of like quality scoring chances you guys would have during the games, and that always felt like the issue that you ran into, at least offensively. Defensively, you guys were really good, one of the best, if not the best, defensive teams in the league this season. So shout out to you, Tony. But
Shout out to BG.
the other thing to bring up there is the goaltending situation, and that was something that Crabbe sort of undertook. He, assumed the risk that comes with that when you say I'm going to take a goalie that can only make it to, half the games, or in this case it was just over half the games. And Goose, he wasn't at his best when he was there. Obviously, I'm sure he would love to have several of those games back, be able to demonstrate that he could have been a better goalie than he was this season. But I think not having him for those, 11 games or whatever it was that he didn't play, I really think that was, if you're looking for one thing that could have made the difference, I think that was the biggest takeaway for me, was the struggles that you guys had when he wasn't there in net.
Yeah. And even, he wasn't, he was inconsistent. I feel bad because, if anybody knows Goose, he could only, he was working most days of the week. Like, he'd get Friday and Saturday off or whatever. So, he wouldn't really be able to play a lot of HQM. So he'd be going in cold. And so he was inconsistent all season. You never know what you're going to get with him. Because sometimes he'd steal us, games, and sometimes he'd just not look good. And you never knew what you were going to get.
Yeah, but that's kind of what happens when you're not staying active and playing and maintaining your play level. You get rusty. It doesn't mean that you can't play well. It just means that you're not going to play well consistently, and that is
that's what happened.
Unfortunately, as a goalie, right, that can be kind of a death sentence, because if you're not playing well, it means your team is losing. There's really no way around that. Like, a forward can have a bad game and they can still win. A defenseman can have a bad game and you can still win. But if a goalie has a bad day, a lot of the times that's game over. So it's a unfortunate situation to be in, but it's the nature of the position. And I'm sure, Austin, you can kind of speak to that a little bit more, having been a goalie yourself previously, right?
I wasn't very good, so that's I was in a similar situation as I guess. I guess this does add more weight to the idea that Goose plays better, over the period of a season, or course of a season, I guess.
I would agree with
not
that.
Really,
I would agree.
Not able to play consistently.
Yeah, I feel bad looking at Goose's season like that, where it doesn't look so good statistically, but at the same time, it's he was he's getting on and practicing on Friday, playing the game, and then maybe he'd get in some pubs on the weekend, and then that'd be it. So I feel bad. Not that I'm using it as an excuse, but it, to criticize him as the goalie from this season, I don't know. I don't know if I'd do that. And he's my teammate. I don't want to.
He's definitely better than I think his stats
he's
show.
better than his stats are, and he
Agreed.
would have been
Completely
he would have
agreed.
been better if he'd been able to make all the games.
Yeah, and I
think
think
playing more consistently.
Even if he continued the level he was playing at for the rest of the season, I still think that would have been enough for you guys to pick up another win or two, and that's all it would have taken for you guys to actually make it, is 1 or 2 more wins.
Yeah, but I mean, that is the game. Crabbe, when he was drafting, he told me he was going to go with that. He was confident that we'd be able to make it work on the Tuesdays. I was a little worried, and then I was right to be worried. It turns out.
Yeah, I mean, that's sort of the risk you run when you, or that's sort of what you agree to when you're willing to take a risk like that in the draft. And I have to give it to Crabbe, because he's one of the few GMs that is typically willing to take risks like that, and he's made it work.
At the whole roster's full of risks, and it didn't work out. But yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't say it's full of risks. Obviously, BG wasn't at the level that he used to be. I mean, I think that goes without saying. And I think most people would have anticipated or expected that before the season started and at the draft and whatnot. There's a reason why he went as late as he did. So that, I don't think there was much risk at. Drafting you is risk-free as well. I mean, you were...
as high as he did, though, I think there's risk in the me pick in the first round. I think the DMB pick was risky, and it sort of worked out. I mean,
I would say
he did well, but we didn't make the playoffs.
I would say to an extent,
I
yes,
wouldn't say anything worked out.
I would say to an extent, yes, if you're looking at just individual pick versus value that you could get out of it, you could make that argument. But at the same time, he picked you in a spot and a situation where like he wouldn't have been able to get you if he wasn't picking you there, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And I think the important takeaway there too is that one of the big things that made you guys competitive in the second half of the season was when you made the switch to go to defense instead and play that. And if he doesn't have you there in the first round and he has just, like insert forward here or something like that, I don't think he would have had the ability to make that change and do so successfully. I think we would have been, or you guys would have been in somewhat of a worse spot because he wouldn't have had the luxury to change around the lineup that he did in that way. So
that's fair. I guess picking me doesn't really turn out as bad as it could have, but at the same time, I was telling him I wanted him to pick me, and I wanted to be on this I knew what he was going to do, and I wanted to be on this team. But I also told him at the draft, maybe you should take Quacky, because I know how good Quacky is, and I'm not that. And he didn't want Quacky at all.
I mean, that's another one that we could get into a little bit here, just because we didn't talk about it, and in the LA one, I mean, maybe we could save it for Colorado if that makes more sense. So let's do it there actually. But the Quacky thing is something I want to get back into as well. But yeah, I mean, that's the team that he decided to run with, and that's typically his approach. He's usually not somebody that is comfortable having like a major net negative somewhere on the ice. He likes to have a more well-balanced approach to the game. And he's usually good at finding a roster that allows him to do that. And you are one of the premier players at fitting into those certain circumstances because he gets an incredible amount of versatility out of having you that he wouldn't get otherwise. And that makes a big difference when you're trying to play that style. It's really tough to emulate that when you don't have players that can switch around and do different things.
I see what he's going for. Like, even though the team wasn't good to start.
Yeah.
It wasn't great. It wasn't all that good to finish either. It was just super inconsistent the whole time. But I don't know. I would say I still think they're sort of risky picks. Most of them, the goalie gambling on the goose thing and the backup goalies, and DMB coming back who hadn't played at all.
Yeah, like to me, those are the
pretty
risks.
High over scores. I don't know. I think they're all risky plays that end up not working out here. But like, I see what had it worked. I see what he's going for.
Yeah. I think the only big risk in my mind was the goaltending situation one. Like that would have been a little more, or that was detrimental. Like a lot more than anything else was.
Yeah. And I know Austin agreed, and Austin went out and got PK, but like, playing when you can't buy saves, like it's the worst. It is the worst.
Yeah.
It's not like it's just there's no matter how good your team is, if you're not getting saves,
I feel like nothing you can do is just
there's nothing you can do is the thing. Well, except crash in front of your net and try to block shots.
Yeah, and hope.
Pray.
Yeah.
That you make the saves. Yeah.
Yep.
So I don't know. Kind of sucked. I kind of felt like we weren't ever able to get going. We were always concerned about goaltending or whatever. We were always worried about things that weren't in our hands. We were BG. BG, I think early on was like our offense wasn't good, and he's trying to do stuff and he can't. And Crab is when he's on D trying to do stuff, and then when we make the switch, I'm playing super defensive, and they don't want me doing that. But like I have no faith half of the games, so, and the stops. So I'm just trying to prevent shots as best as I can.
Yeah, it changes your mental approach. Yeah. I think Kat mentioned it in the community meeting too, actually, didn't he? Didn't we talk about this a little bit? It changes your approach to the game, especially as a defenseman. But in any case, when you're a skater, it changes the way you think about the game and the way you approach it when you don't have faith in the goaltending. And that can be like... It can be incredibly detrimental psychologically and really change the way you play the game in a negative way because it takes away from your willingness to go for the more like aggressive plays that are more likely to actually generate you some offense. So instead you just default to safer things over and over again. And unfortunately, safer things aren't always the way to score enough goals to get through a game. You know, you can score 2 or 3 goals a game playing safe, but you're not going to score 4 or 5. So if you start giving up too many, there's no way to come back at that point. And that's, you know, that's kind of the problem with that.
I feel like that was the problem of Seattle all season, is too safe. We weren't taking our chances. DMB was always trying to kind of preach that. He wanted us to always be aggressive and, you know, with our chances with the puck, and like try, like still want not to not pass, not to just say let's fucking dangle everybody and score, but like, you know, like do some stuff with the puck here. Don't hold it. Don't wait for the perfect pass or whatever.
Yeah.
Just move it quick and all that. And we never really could.
Yep. Probably
the problem of trying to dig it out of our own zone. You know, we didn't really. We don't have much of this. We didn't really have the stretch game. You know, we couldn't really bomb it up to somebody to score.
Yep.
That wasn't really how we played. Oh well. Not the end of the world. The team is in the playoffs.
There's Paco mentioned it in chat a little earlier, but the Juice dropout in the draft. I definitely agree that screwed with what Crab was planning, from what I've heard about that anyway.
Oh, yeah, he wanted Paco.
Yeah.
And he thought he was sure he was going to get him.
Yeah.
No.
It completely changed the way that
I guess you would have taken... Well, I don't know. I wonder if you still trade up for Otto.
I don't think a trade up was going to happen, maybe, at that point.
If Juice was in the draft, my understanding is that Sully would have taken Juice. That was his plan. Was he was going to take Juice number 1, and then when Juice dropped out and he didn't do that anymore, or he couldn't do that anymore.
Yeah, he could only take a guy who put up 105 points.
Yeah. But he didn't want to play with Otto, so he instead opted to go with Paco, which, you know, they still made 3rd seed, made the playoffs. So, but definitely Paco, unfortunately, as good as he is not Otto.
As good as 50, high 59 points or whatever it is, it's not 105.
Yep. Unfortunately,
and it's not 105 that he's mostly creating all alone.
All on his own. Yep.
Yeah, he's doing crazy, walking around everybody.
Otto's pretty nuts. But I just wanted to stress in general that might have been one of the most impactful draft decisions that ever happened, was Juice pulling out of that draft.
Yeah, that
changed the entire complexity of the way every single one of the teams ended up being put together. I think things would have been incredibly different had that not been the case, because you would have seen Juice go to Sully, you would have seen Otto probably go to Cap, and then probably at that point me to Austin, and then Zam probably still takes J. Lalu, and then Austin or Crab probably takes Paco at that point, right? And then you've got KP at the end, who probably just takes Leafs in the first round and doesn't trade out of it this time. So, and then, you know, at that point, Juice, I don't know if he would have been advocating for Quacky at the top of the second, but that could have been disgusting too. Quacky and Juice together, oh my God. So we could have been looking at a drastically different team, as just about every 4 of the 6 teams would have had a completely different first round draft pick, and it would have, you know, really changed the way that I think this season would have gone, which is interesting in hindsight, right? And it'd be fun to do a mock draft of season 20 and include Juice in it, just to see the way things might have shaped up differently.
Sure, we have one.
Yeah, we probably have a couple.
Right, but I'm saying in hindsight, now that we've seen how the players played this season and everything too, like not just
time to get back to the ultimate team. We got to make the ratings for this season.
Yep.
Oh yeah, anybody listening want your cards? Fuck off. No, I'm just kidding. I bet nobody even knows what I'm talking about. It's fine.
Secret project. That's all right. Anyway, so I mean, the chances were there for Seattle. I don't think that.
Not really.
I don't think that Crab drafted like too poorly to be able to win or anything like that. He took risks, as sometimes.
I feel like though, of the risk taken, feel like you should have made a trade that wasn't getting Guy. I feel like I should have went, or like something. Like I can't believe I didn't get trade. Not that I ever asked for a trade. I literally only wanted to play on Seattle. I didn't want to get on another team, like genuinely.
So Austin, you can speak to this more as a GM, but from what I heard is basically Crab was only trying to make trades that were incredibly one-sided in favor of his team.
Yeah.
And
once he
Go ahead.
Once he sent Payne away, I had no interest in like dealing with this team at that point because he wasn't going to offer anything realistic to me anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah,
you were the biggest value piece that they had, and it didn't seem like he was willing to move you from what I could tell based on discussions that Cap had
I
anyway.
think
And
early on, I don't know for sure, but I think he would have moved me if he got PK back early on. I think like when we were having a bad stretch, probably even before I switched
do you think
to
he
D.
would have given up on Goose that early though? Because I don't think he would
Yes.
have.
I know he had a trade in place at one point. I don't want to say what it was for. You probably know. But
If I did, I don't remember it now.
early,
So.
it was like halfway through the season. He had a trade. He was gonna make it, and then the the goalies essentially that were gonna swap. Both Goose had a bad day, and the other one had a good one, and then the other GM backed out, and then it sort of, yeah, that was it. Like we needed to use Goose, or we were gonna use him on that day, I think. Whatever it was,
Mhm.
like it was a Friday or something, and so we play him on the Friday, and then he wasn't particularly good, and so that
Yeah, it
tanked
kind
that
of
trade.
puts you in a
Yeah.
tough spot at that point. And I know like our team had looked into trading for Goose as well during the season. That was something that had been discussed, and we were sort of going
Well, why
back
do you
and
need that when you have the goalie with the best save percentage on the whole league on your team? In Doc,
That's true.
at 71%, better than PK.
No comment. No comment on that one. But yeah, no, we were exploring doing that for a while, as I'm sure you know, and we kind of were flip-flopping back and forth on whether or not we wanted to do it, and we kept getting cold feet because every time we'd be ready to do it, Goose would play that night and then have a really bad night, and
Yeah.
we'd be like, oh fuck, maybe we shouldn't do it. And
So,
then
yeah, exactly.
you know, then our team would have a bad night, and then we'd be like, oh fuck,
And then
we need
Crab
to
wouldn't
do
wanna do
something
it.
just to, yeah. And then Crab wouldn't want to do it. And it would just it flip
Yeah, it
flop
was
back
like,
and forth like that for what felt like 2 weeks. So there was a lot of probably, or at least I feel like it was more than usual this season. A lot of like trades that were talked about and never finalized, more so than ever before. It felt like there was trade offer after trade offer after trade offer all season long, all these rumors. And we did end up getting some like legitimate, meaningful trades by the end. But holy fuck, I was getting blue balls for a while there with the amount of trade requests going around, or yeah, not trade requests, but trade rumors going around.
Anybody request a trade this season?
I don't think officially, no. I don't think anybody outright said like, please trade me.
Yeah,
But there were
nobody
definitely
submitted the request. Yeah,
yeah,
there were
they were
people who wanted
definitely
off their team, but
exactly.
like, yeah,
Exactly. But nobody formally went through and was like, I can't do this anymore. So, which is nice to see, I suppose. It's a good thing, you know.
yeah, it's fine.
Anyway, all right, let's keep this moving on to the next teams because we're down to 40 minutes left before
And I'll just have to put on the fight and
before
not pay
Michael
attention.
Tyson is
Oh my God!
you know, going to
If
town.
you're listening to the Faceoff instead of watching Mike Tyson fight Roy Jones Jr., holy fuck, what are you doing?
We'll be stopping at 9, maybe a couple minutes over, but we'll be stopping right around there, so don't worry.
Yeah, well, we'll see. We'll see when he walks out. What time that is? Because it's scheduled at 9, but you never, you know.
Yeah, it's going to be like a half hour.
It's
honestly,
gonna be like
so.
10 o'clock by the time
Yeah.
he's punching him in that brain.
Yep. Okay. So any other sort of closing thoughts here on Seattle? Austin, do you have anything, or Tony?
Austin?
Not really. Nothing that's hasn't already been said, I guess.
Yeah, I don't know. We kind of sucked. Well, what are you
I
gonna do?
thought you guys are better than you were playing a lot of the
Maybe,
season.
but yeah, whatever.
I mean, you guys finished 11-14, and
I think if we get a league average save percentage, yeah, maybe we'll miss the playoffs. But like that's
what I'm
also
saying.
like unfair to look at because that's not how we built the team. So like,
if you get a Goose average save percentage just based on this season, that I think is enough to flip 2 games.
If we had if overall we had Goose's save percentage, probably enough. That's an extra 4% on the season, which in theory
think,
would be enough.
Yeah, I think that would flip roughly 2 games if I had to take a completely wild guesstimate, and that would have put you at 13-12, which would have put you at 3rd seed. So,
oh well,
is what it is. But
shit season for the most part. Botched a lot of games, got mercied a lot. Oh well,
pretty up and down season for you guys on the whole, actually. So
yeah, has and losing on. Or the team missing the playoffs, not really having an impact on my decision to not play anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, it probably looks like it. Probably, I missed the playoffs. He's gonna quit. Nah, I decided.
Is this
Decided a
your
while ago.
formal public announcement?
I think I
then?
already did. I think anybody who's asked, they know. I think it's doing the rounds. Yeah, I'm out.
I'll see you next season, Tony.
I can't stay. I literally no. I can't like mentally take getting on for the LHL anymore. I hate game days more than anything. Like I hate having to play an LHL game. Like, which I always did, but I thought it'd be better this time around because there'd been a break and I was looking forward to it. It's the same thing every day. I just wish I was doing anything else.
Yeah, I think that's a
So,
good sign at that point that it's time to stop. So.
I got the same thing. I got the same thing that Juice gets: the game day dread.
Yeah.
Just you wake up knowing you have to play LHL and just dread it.
But you still agree that Juice is a bastard for pulling a sign up, though.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, he should have played this season. If I played, he's got to play. Actually, I'll play next season if it's build your own team and I'm on the Juice guy team. HQML? HQML?
Are Juice and Guy enough together to overcome Otto?
No.
I don't know.
No, but Otto's going to be on the team too.
Oh, I see.
It's me and Otto and Juice and Guy and PK.
I was going to say Calgary too.
Actually,
it'd be Calgary 3 at that point.
Yeah.
The new tour coach.
All right, let's move on to Toronto and keep this going so we can, at worst, keep this to 2 hours because we usually go over, and lately it's been like 2.5 or closer to 3. Jesus. So Toronto finished the season 13-12, which I think 4 wins came against you guys, Austin, which I'm sure we'll get into here, but 13-12 on the season. Finished as the 4th seed when actually for a little while they were looking like they might actually squeeze their way up to 1st seed. So I'm sure not where they wanted to finish ultimately, but they fell kind of backwards into the playoffs, losing their final 3 games doing so. But they're there, and they are matched up against the number 1 seed, New Jersey, you guys, which we'll get into the more specifics of the playoff matchup here coming up soon. But in general, I think on the whole, Toronto's season was a success. There was a lot of speculation at the start of the season. I don't think a ton of people really thought the Toronto team was going to be incredible or like a world beater or anything like that. And there was obviously a lot of people that were constantly picking against them in the predictions and stuff. And if you remember the first week or 2 that they had, their team was getting blown out in a bunch of games and it wasn't looking great. So the fact that they were able to turn that around and make their season a success definitely speaks to KP's ability to put a team together. And I know, there was, even before the draft happened, there was a lot of concern about KP picking at 6 and whether or not that was really something that, made sense given his talent level and whatnot. Not to say that, he's not good enough to be the 6th pick GM or anything like that, but still, there's sort of less experience there than there would be for somebody like, myself or Otto, people who have picked 6th overall in the past. So it was definitely a challenging situation for him to come into, especially knowing the somewhat lack of talent we had this season with a number of our more veteran players not coming back, particularly in the areas of defense specifically. So I'd say on the whole he had a successful season, but knowing KP, he's not going to look at it that way unless they at least make the finals. But last I knew, he is actually quite confident in his ability to do so with this roster, as he is not afraid of 105-point Otto at all. I don't understand that. I don't really understand why they went 4-1 against you guys either on the season, but suffice to say, it is still the case. So, Austin, I'm curious for your opinion on this team as somebody that's going to be facing them in the first round and somebody that's had to sort of deal with them as a thorn in your side all season. Do you want to share some thoughts on where you think their strengths are and their weaknesses are and stuff like that?
I feel like in all of our losses against them, they were definitely a much stronger possession team with the puck. We couldn't really get it off them. We really struggled to get the puck off of them. So less chances for us to score. A lot of we did get beat pretty badly by them in one of the games, I think it was. But the final 2 games are 1-goal games. And I'm not really scared of this team anymore.
So that is the best way to play defense against Otto. Don't let him have the puck. If he doesn't have the puck, he can't score. So That's thinking with your brain right there.
Why didn't we think of that?
Yeah, I know, right? Just don't give him the puck and he won't score. Easy. But yeah, I mean, on the whole, even though you guys lost 4 out of the 5 games, you only had a -2 goal differential in the series. So you were able to keep a lot of those games close. And even in the last game you played against them was like 8-3 or something like that.
Yeah.
So that does kind of skew the way the numbers look for the rest of the season. But, every one of those goals counts. So it's, it has been tough for me to evaluate that because, like you said, the possession does play a big factor in it. As much as I'm memeing about keeping the puck away from Otto, it does legitimately reduce his ability to score if you guys can't get the puck off of them and they can keep it in your zone a lot. But I think they struggle when teams limit their ability to turn that puck possession into scoring chances. And that's where Seattle came in clutch, where I think your team didn't necessarily do as good of a job of that during the regular season. Now, that was with a completely different lineup. You had Tidge and Ike out there instead of now Marchi and Lucic. So, and obviously PK. So it's going to be a lot different to look at, and it's kind of tough to evaluate how this series is going to go because you only had, I think, the one game with that lineup against them, maybe 2. So it's hard to say. It will definitely be different, but it's hard to say how much that's going to be the case. I particularly will need to see a little bit more out of Haybert. I don't think he was bad this season. I want to clarify before I say that. I'm not saying he was shitty or anything, but I think there were a lot of games where I think he could have done just a little bit more to help keep them in. And I kind of look at it the same way I look at Goose, where I don't think the stat lines that they had on the season reflect really how good either one of them are. And I think both of them are plenty good enough to be an over 60% save rate goalie, but for one reason or another, in both circumstances, they weren't. And I think there is some onus that they both have to take as a result of that. And I think especially going up against the team that has Otto on it, Haybert is somebody who typically does play well in close against people. You are going to need to see him be a lot better at that than he was during the regular season. And I trust that he's capable of getting there, but he's going to need to find the motivation to really push for that further than he did during a lot of those regular season games. So I don't know how you guys feel about that one.
Yeah, I think Bert, he seems like he rattles easy. Seems like maybe, one goes in and then it's easier to get another one. But
I don't
when
even
he's
know if I'd
on, he's
say
nuts.
yeah, well, exactly. I don't even know that I'd say he rattles easy. Like when I'm thinking about goalies, I would say Sully is more the type of goalie to sort of get in his own head with things and cause himself problems with that. Like, and Eric's the same way. Like the two of them, I think if the game starts poorly for them, it's tough for them to mentally come back from that. But with somebody like Haybert, it feels a little different, and maybe I just don't know him well enough. But to me, it feels like if the game's not going well at the start, he kind of stops caring.
Yeah, maybe that's more it than being rattled.
You know what I mean? Like I feel like he lets up, or he has let up 3 goals at the beginning of the game, in the first period, whether or not that's his fault, right? And he just kind of starts not really trying as hard anymore. And that's
Except for that way in pubs.
Definitely.
Yeah, that's
yeah, and that's part of what plays into that because obviously you see it in pubs all the time with him. He'll let up 3 goals and then he just starts turning around and playing backwards goalie and stuff like that. Like it
Of course,
feels
I've
like
seen him make saves when he does that.
Oh
so
yeah,
I
I mean
don't know.
he's an insanely good player, and like you said, when he's on point, he's disgusting. Like he's one of the better goalies in the league for sure. Like he has the potential and ability to be insanely good, and he still shows that even in the games where that doesn't necessarily show up on the stat board or whatever, right? So you can't write him off or anything like that, but I think it's going to be on KP to make sure that he's maintaining a certain level of like motivation and investment in games if they go down early, because that seems to be the biggest problem for him. And when you're playing against somebody like Otto, who is just as dominant as there has ever been a player in the league, you can't have a goalie that isn't on point because you've already lost if that's the case. Trying to score more than Otto is not really the way to look at it. You're trying to limit his scoring chances, limit the goals he gets. That's really the way that you want to approach it. And having a goalie that is incapable of helping you do that is just never going to work. I mean, that's how you get 5 goal per game, 105 point per season Otto. So
Yep.
But yeah, so I mean, I think they stand a good chance against you guys. Obviously, they earned their playoff spot. It would be cool to have been able to see Seattle go in, because Seattle, I think, at least to me, felt like they on paper should match up better than Toronto did. And you guys certainly matched up well against them during the regular season, but you can't deny the fact that Toronto did get 4 wins against New Jersey one way or another. So I think no matter what, they have a good chance at being able to continue their season here. So.
Yeah, maybe.
I disagree.
We're not in playoff today. I think New Jersey's got them. I think the New Jersey roster post-deadline is more than they can handle. But I don't know. That's more of a prediction.
Yeah, we'll get to that. So, Any final thoughts on Toronto and their season?
Yeah, I think they kind of botched it at the end.
I think that trade was bad for them.
Yeah, I think every move they made kind of was sending them in the wrong direction. I thought they were getting. I was talking about that way back. I don't remember if I said it on the Faceoff, but
I think the episode right after they traded for Jay Lalo, I think you brought this up.
And I probably brought it up while they were hot. Of like, how many times have we seen these teams with super offense, just 4 guys scoring, or at least moving the puck and doing well and everything? How often do we see a team get hot like that and then make a trade for a more normal looking roster and then wreck their team doing that? I think that's kind of what happened with Toronto, is getting Lalo, even though Lalo's nuts. He's my favorite player, favorite dude in the whole game.
Well, they're probably better on paper.
Yeah, that's like Hill thought they got better on paper too, and I think maybe you got a better player, sure, but your team was working. Who cares if you got a better player? I don't know.
Yeah, they moved Leafs back to defense and then put Lalo.
Yeah, Leafs is not as good a defenseman as he is a forward, it seems. He was doing really good on forward, I thought. I don't know.
I don't even know if it's just a Leafs thing so much as it's a it's a team chemistry.
No, it's the whole team dynamic.
The way they play off of each other.
Yeah, I'm not like shitting on Leafs here. I'm just saying, like, they seem to. I don't know. They had a good thing going. They made some moves, and now they don't appear to have a good thing going. So I don't know. Like, they could win, sure. If they get a little lucky, it could happen. Like, they got talent on the roster, but I don't know. I kind of hope they don't, just because I feel like they made the team worse. Like, if they'd rolled with that starting team, I'd be, rooting for them a little more, I think.
Yeah. No, I
just in terms of story of it, like they kept it going. I guess, I don't know, but maybe they would have fallen off. Maybe they were concerned, like, who knows?
So
maybe it wouldn't.
So given that, are there any trades that you think might have made sense for them to get involved in that weren't the Jay Lalo one, or do you just think outright like they should have just kept the lineup the same as it was the whole way and just rolled with it?
I don't know. I don't know what they could have. Like, I don't know what was out there for them.
I guess, is there another player on one of these rosters that if you're gonna trade away Owl and you're committed to that and changing your team, is there a different player you think they should have attempted to pursue that could have sort of helped them reach that same end in a more productive way or a less inconsistent way?
Not really. Not for like what I think. Like, because even if they what if they're the ones that get Taze? What if it's just a swap? Whatever. Like, I don't think that, like, you're just looking at the same thing. Lalo and Taze are similar to me, where they're good players, but they're like normal players. They're standard players that wouldn't, work in the way that they used to play, that Toronto used to play.
That's kind of where I was going to go with that next is, you're like, even Taze, I don't know if he would have been a solution that would have helped them fix that, because Taze is still similar, like you're saying, he's the type of person that fits in a meta team. That's the type of way that he plays, and that's not to say that he's not capable of playing in something that's a little bit different, because he's notoriously one of the like best adaptive players to playing, with the guys around him and whatnot. He does a really good job at that and ensuring that he's, doing everything he needs to make everything more successful for his teammates. He's really proficient at that. And that's been one of his strengths for a very long time. But that doesn't, like, they played a possession heavy style that was almost, people talk about positionless basketball, right? You get to positionless hockey. It's kind of like that almost. And I don't think Jay Lalu fits that super well. And I don't think Taze would have fit that super well either.
That's exactly like
I don't know who else would.
Yeah, I mean, that's not a criticism of them to say that. Like, I would not fit well in that either. I'd be fucking shit at that. Are you kidding? So, I mean, it's, it's just some people excel in different environments, and I don't believe that was an environment that was built for Jay Lawler to be successful in, and I think we've kind of seen that. His scoring stayed about the same as it did when he was on LA. He's not really scoring significantly more than he was previously, and you could look at his plus-minus, too. His plus-minus really didn't get much better either. So in terms of overall success, I don't think it really added to the team in the way that KP thought it would. So
yeah,
but it's tough to say that because you see bright lights, Jay Lalu's name, right? Like, you can get him. All you have to do is trade Owl, and it's like, oh yeah, fuck yeah, give me that. Like, I don't blame him for wanting to pursue that. So
yeah, yeah, just nothing I see that I think would have been like better than getting Lalu on paper, and there's nothing I see that they could have switched around to keep the team looking how it used to look.
Gotcha. Yep.
Like, I think they probably should have just rolled with it.
Yep.
And saw if, like, maybe at the trade deadline, if it had stopped working by then make a move and shake something
At
up.
least hold off
minor.
a little bit longer, basically. Yeah, no, I understand what you mean.
Trading when everything was going well, I didn't agree with that.
Maybe March you could
put him in somewhere. I think the time
maybe.
to do that, the time to trade when things are going well, is if you have a player that's overperforming what your expectations are of them and you don't think it's sustainable, then that's
I guess
a
that
good
is,
time.
that
if
is
they
what
thought it was Owl.
Yeah, I know Kill said that when he was on here. He was saying he didn't trust Owl going forward. He felt a choke coming on.
I do know a lot of Owl's points were scored against my team. He had a couple like really good games against us, I think, in our earlier ones.
Inflates the stats a little, but rather than a balanced approach. But I mean, I don't know. Like, you look at how many players in the league, I bet that's the case where they have a lucky couple games, myself included, probably.
So, I mean, I think
if that's a 4-goal game on defense at one point, like, fuck, wasn't doing that every game.
I think if that's the way he was looking at it, then I can understand that. You want to sell high, right? You always want to make sure you're if you're going to trade somebody away, you want to make sure you're trading them away and getting appropriate value for them in return. So, if that's the case, then yeah, totally on board with that. Like, I understand why you're going that route with it. It makes sense. So, I think that's really the only justification for doing it. But even then, because they played such a unique style, I think that's really what made it not worth it to do that, because the people you're trading for at that point, even if you're selling high on your own player, you're still reliant on that new player coming back being able to fit into the system that you're currently playing, or reliant on the rest of the team having to change the way they play the game and approach the game to fit that one player. And both of those are somewhat challenging things to do when they are such an unorthodox team. So, anyway, all right. I think we touched on Toronto enough. We're good on this one, right?
Yep.
You guys set with this?
Yep.
All right. Let's go to Boston. So now we have some Boston boys in the chat. I think Sully and Paco are both here. So
fuck you two. I'm just kidding.
Yeah,
Please
frick
stay.
both of them.
Please stay and listen.
So anyway, so Boston ended up finishing third this season. They went 12-1-12, that one being an overtime loss, so 12-13 on the season. But because of all the overtime wins that Toronto had, they wound up finishing 1 point behind Colorado, 1 point behind Boston, despite having a
They won 2 games
theoretically
then this season,
better record.
didn't they? They won both games at the last day. Why? It's the streak says 1-1.
Did they? Did I
Yeah.
mess that up? I probably just messed that up.
No, they won. It's a win one. We beat them in the first game.
Oh, you played them.
Get fucked, Tony. I was right. You made me second guess myself. Fuck you,
We didn't
Tony.
play them on the last day?
No.
Who did I play on the last
No,
day?
none of the teams did.
You played us in
Oh.
LA.
Oh, I played them like the day before. Okay.
Yeah.
I thought that was the same day. Whatever. Yeah.
Okay.
There's
Anyway,
a team.
so
As Sully said, we got fucked by New Jersey. Here's a team that's praying that Toronto wins in the first round. As I'm sure Colorado probably.
I mean,
would
yeah,
too.
both of our teams are going to be. So
Actually,
that's for sure.
Boston did actually keep our game close against them. It was like Gregors and Para were in the game, but Otto scored with like 10 seconds left to bring us to a win in regulation. So at least there's that for them.
You guys still won 4 out of 5 games with a +8 goal differential on them this season. So
Yeah, not particularly close.
But there's something at least
and
there.
your team used to be
true.
worse.
That is true. That is true. Okay, so on the whole, obviously, this team was one that a lot of people had eyes on for the whole season because of the decision that was made at the draft to not pick Otto. So no matter which way that went, whether or not Otto had a bad season and it was the right idea, or Otto had a good season and it was the wrong idea, no matter which way that went, that trade was going to be heavily scrutinized because of it. Not necessarily from Austin's end for trading up for him, but for Sully's end by not picking him and instead trading down. And he traded down to go for an approach similar to what we were talking about with Crab, where he wanted a team that was going to be more well-balanced across the board. The difference there being that he was able to get Paco, and Paco is a nuts player, so he definitely had a sort of a leg up just by the nature of him picking earlier in the draft. So they only, I think it was one trade they made this season, which involved Taze being shipped out for Owl, pretty much, is how that went. And I've heard that Dalf didn't particularly enjoy playing with Taze, which honestly really surprises me because I think that's the first time I've ever heard another defenseman say that they didn't like playing alongside Taze. I don't think I've ever heard that before. So the fact that
now he's saying he doesn't like playing with Owls, so like, fuck, what are you gonna do?
I haven't heard that yet, but I also haven't really talked to him about that at all. So I said this at the time of the trade, but I always thought that the Owl and Dalfan pairing is a little strange because it's similar to what was going on in LA, where you've got two offensive style defensemen, and as a result, they can't both be playing offense all the time. So one of them is going to have to yield ground to the other in order for them to maintain success as a team, or they both end up going up and then you wind up costing your team a bunch of issues defensively. And when we're talking about defensively, they're actually either the worst or second worst team in the league in terms of shots against per game. I think the second worst. You guys can verify that by looking over it real quick, but giving up 8.76 shots against per game. So definitely not limiting the number of shots in the way that they would want to. However, Sully did thrive in that environment as he had an almost 64% save rate, which is very respectable. The goals against average a little high at 3.16, but goal scoring on the whole this season was pretty high. So not necessarily a knock against him on that one, but anyway, you could tell that having the two of them did make a positive impact on their offensive generation. They were able to score a lot. They were able to funnel the puck up to Paco, get Drag in good positions to be able to score. Owl and Dalf both provided a good scoring touch from the points as well, both able to make a guy or two miss. So there's a lot of sort of teamwork going on there and ability to generate offense from everybody on the ice, which is something that not every team can say. And it's definitely a benefit to be able to do that in case somebody's having a bad game or something like that. But at the end of the day, the majority of it does go through Paco, and I think the team lives and dies off of Paco. If he has a good game, they're likely to win. If he's not able to have a great game, they're probably going to lose. And that's basically basically how I think things are going to go in the playoffs for them too. Obviously, Sully and Paco are the focal points of the team, so you need the two of them to be playing well, and I'm sure they're both going to step up and bring their A game. I have no doubt about that. But yeah, I think it's pretty much the team that I expected them to be, and that I think a lot of people expected them to be. Contending for the playoffs, being there in the mix for winning. The New Jersey team's existence obviously puts a bit of a damper on their odds at actually winning, but that's the same thing for all other of the 3 teams remaining now, but 5 in total. So, but yeah, I think Sully will look at this season as being successful for him, given that he's the 3rd seed, top half of the league, did end up making the playoffs despite not picking Otto. But I think especially if he doesn't win the cup, even if they lose in the finals in 7 games, he will always have that as a sort of black mark on his career that he could have had Otto and chose not to. And I think the only way that they get around that is if they win the cup this season.
Yeah. That's kind of the thing. I was waiting to talk about New Jersey with it, but of like all these storylines, it's all just gonna, our memory of this is gonna depend on who wins this here. Otherwise, it's like, well, Toronto made a good trade. Actually, getting Lalu was good because he scored the cup-winning goal. Or again, Sully made the right choice because they won in the end. Or like Colorado made the right choice. Or all these things, all of whatever we're doing is just gonna, like, it's gonna look like if they lose, it's like Sully's a moron. If they win, he's a genius. It's fucking.
Yep. Although, honestly, in the Sully case, even if they win, I wouldn't say Sully's a genius for making that trade, to be honest. Like,
you trade away Otto, that's fine.
The Taze trade is pretty bad, too.
I'm trying to think of the most fair way to word this, but, like, I think in any situation where you can have Otto and you choose not to is not a good idea. It doesn't mean it's a bad idea, but it's not a good idea to not want Otto and to move out of picking Otto. So I would say if he wins the cup, he's winning in spite of not picking Otto, but I wouldn't say that it was a win for him not to take him. I don't think there's anything that could happen that would specify that to be the case unless Otto had a terrible season, which he didn't. So based on the season Otto
of
had,
all time, in fact.
he had the best 5v5 season ever by a lot, beating out himself multiple times over. It would have taken a much more lackluster performance from him this season in order to make that trade a win for Sully. And unfortunately, that didn't happen. So,
yeah. Yeah,
well, Austin, as the beneficiary of that trade, can you sort of walk us through your end of it and sort of how you view it from his side? Because I'm always curious from a GM perspective how you guys look at it, because obviously you have a different sort of mindset and mentality, different approach that you take with a lot of those trades, because you have to look at the team in a much different light.
I actually told Sully not to make the trade, right? That I thought it was a bad idea for him to do it at the time. And I think the original trade offer was actually much worse than it was going and ended up being.
Right?
Yeah, well, I mean, and also, like, I think 2nd or 3rd round picks were in play instead of 2nd round picks as well. But
the draft really falls off. At least what was picked, the expected picks of each round, and I think this draft went fairly, as to be expected. There wasn't a lot of shock.
Yeah, and a lot of bling was the juice yet again, obviously, because I felt like I was going to be left without a carry player had I not made a trade, so it was pretty important for me.
I don't
told you to make that trade. I think I did a mock.
Yeah, I actually asked around a couple guys, and just to make sure it wasn't.
I did a mock draft and saw your team, and I was like, I don't think this team can win, and what's the point if you're not going to win? So you should swing for the fences and get Otto and just say fuck it. But
I don't think it was a mistake at all to trade for Otto, so I think you made the right call.
Yeah, like I thought the team Austin would have ended up with would have looked okay, would have been a balanced enough team, but like I didn't think it was going to be the best team.
He could have been Boston.
Yeah, I think it could have been Boston, but you maybe could have even been worse because you don't have Sully.
Yeah, possibly too. No, yeah, not as good of a goaltender situation.
So it's So anyway, I think that was a good call for Austin. Sully, his team's okay. It worked. His team's working. So like, it's not even that it's what he got wasn't even bad. It's just the fact that you trade away from Otto, and it's like, oh Jesus.
Yeah, it's
'Cause
hard to justify.
We
that
all
no
knew
matter
what Otto was gonna do. Maybe we didn't think he was gonna be over 4 a game, but you knew he was gonna be the best,
Close around
above
five.
and beyond the best.
Yeah. I don't think anybody is. I don't think anybody was surprised when he was, MVP early on at the start of the season. Obviously, I don't think anybody expected him to be over 4 points a game and hit over 100 points.
Now we haven't done award voting yet, but is this the first time we don't even vote on MVP?
Yeah, I mean, most of the awards outside of like best defenseman, like I don't even see a point in voting for them. To be honest,
there's no rookie. There's the best goalie's clear. The MVP's clear.
I mean, I have a clear opinion on best defenseman too, but I'm sure that one will at least be somewhat more contested with some other people. So,
See, I don't know. I doubt. I bet people get votes, but I think the winner wins it.
Hello.
Yeah. No, I'm talking about me, Austin.
Oh,
you.
No, I was talking about Marchie. So
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Really? I was talking about BG actually.
Oh, yikes.
Yeah.
Did we figure out if that's the worst points per game from a starting skater ever? Because I think it might be.
I would say yeah. Let's just say yes.
I mean, that was
.33 from somebody who played almost every game in a season.
Well, he played a game and a half or so in net or whatever it was.
Yes. So
he played
22 games with only 8 points is not.
Yeah.
That's.
Here, let me.
I don't
I
know
got all the stats
if I'm scrolling over. I'm sorry to those who are watching this. So I'm scrolling over to look at some stuff that you guys won't be able to see at the moment. But yeah, .33 is not good. Not good.
Yeah, the only one worse would be Proper Cheese in season 8. It looks like.
What was he at?
.27. He played
How
15 games.
Pretty plenty in net. So he's.
I'm gonna go find out. What did I just say? Season 8?
Yeah.
Let me see if he played any in net. I don't know what team he's on here.
Maybe the Gabe team.
Yeah, that's it. D/G. Yeah. So he played 50. He played only 10 as a skater. Played 5 in net. Okay, so that doesn't even count.
Yeah, that's not even enough.
A third of his season is in net. Yeah. So how about this guy, Trev Crow, season 17. He played 16 games, .25. He was on that Lucic team. I don't remember which one it was, LA or Edmonton.
Yeah, that's right up there with it.
Yeah, that's
anyway,
the worst one.
We're getting sidetracked here, shitting on BG a little bit, but that's fine. So I think we've gone through Boston pretty sufficiently. Any closing thoughts? Anything we didn't touch on?
Probably should have kept Taze. But
or should have spent
Who gives a shit?
Yeah, I heard Delfan was untouchable, which shocked me when they were willing to trade Taze. So yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's move on to Colorado, as we're 5-6 minutes away from the Mike Tyson getting knocked out in 30 seconds.
He's murdering Roy Jones. He's gonna kill him in the ring. We're gonna see an old man die today, and then Mike Tyson's gonna have a heart attack like a week from now.
It's gonna be good stuff.
Oh, I can't.
Okay, so Colorado, definition of an up and down season, to say the least. I want to throw it to
up
you
and
guys.
Then down.
I want to throw it to you guys first on this one for a non-biased account of it first, and then I'll put some thoughts into it afterwards. But
me and Austin were the ones who thought you guys were going to be good even after Guy left. So thanks for making us look stupid.
Sorry.
Thanks to Dial. I don't even know what to make of what happened to that team.
We went 4-4 after the trade deadline, to be clear. After we traded for
that's a
Taze
step in the right
Kiwi,
direction.
We went 4-4.
Step in the right direction.
Before that, with the 8 games without Guy, we were 3-5.
I'm not sure if maybe it was Guy as so much as maybe Cap didn't perform to the level that he needed to.
Yeah, Cap's looked not very good. He was, I don't know. I played with him in Friday Night Hockey right before, and I thought he was going to be good. I like playing with him.
Yeah, I love playing
So
with Cap. It's fun.
so like I don't, I don't know what the hell happened.
I
Didn't
mean,
seem like
Yeah,
they needed a guy to
Cap and
score.
Marchie just did not work at all, and
no.
goalie
So
the saves weren't there.
I
It's
think
D versus the goalie who's at fault, that kind of thing. I
I
don't know.
think the biggest issue that we had across the board is that we had too many players that weren't able to play to the level that they expect of themselves and that other people expect from them. Too many people that were underperforming on a regular basis, and that really wasn't something that we were able to overcome regularly. And that includes myself, so I'm not removing myself from that at all. So there was a lot in that like stretch of really bad games that we had where we all could have stepped up and done a lot more. But basically when we were winning and doing really well at the start of the season was when Quacky and I and Guy as well while he was there would get our team like a 2-0, 3-0, 4-1 lead or something like that in the first period, and then we'd be able to just maintain that for the rest of the game. But a lot of times, even when we were winning those games early, we'd still give up a lot of, in quotes, garbage time goals because we'd like fuck around and not really play as seriously because we'd have scored like 5 or 6 goals at that point, and we're just kind of screwing around trying to like score more and not really playing defensively very well. So that was a big part of the issue that looked like it was going to come back to bite us in the ass, which it did against Seattle. But we really didn't respond or adjust well when sort of the script was flipped on us. When we played from behind down like 2, 3, 4 goals, we started to play, especially post Guy, started to play much more like a much more risk oriented game, and we would sell out constantly to try to like get that one shot off at like a really tight angle or something like that, and we would position ourselves poorly and try to like find a way to generate offense, but that would always come at the cost of again playing defensively responsibly. So what would happen is we'd go down 2, start taking big risks, those risks wouldn't pay out, and then we'd get scored on going the other way, and now we're down 3. And now we're in an even bigger of a hole, so we keep going back to do the same thing, and now we're down 4. So that was always the downside of our team, was we just never had enough of a good defensive baseline to be able to maintain a solid level of defensive play while still being able to generate offense. It was basically we're selling out to score and giving up all defense, or we're back playing defense and selling out to do that but not score. We really never found a good way to do both. And I think a lot of that was because of the fact that for most of the season, we never really had a true like number one defenseman, or never really had somebody that was playing it to that level. I don't think Marchie was playing as well as he could have been at all. I don't think he played as well as he's played in previous seasons. And I don't think he was ready to sort of handle the reins when Guy left and have to be the number one guy on the team playing around Cap next to him. I don't think he was prepared for that. I don't think Cap was as ready for that either as what he could have been, or in theory should have been. And I think in total, the two of them just didn't really play well enough off of one another. And that was a big part of the issue that sort of led to all of that. And we had a lot of plans about like, moving Quacky to D and moving Cap back up to O, and, trying out Doc on defense and stuff like that. Like we had a lot of things we wanted to move around and switch around to try to find ways to be more successful. But ultimately, we didn't really have a ton of opportunities to do that during the one skid that we had, because we missed Quacky for a couple of games. I think we missed Marchie for one of those games or something. Like we had some weird kind of attendance things that kind of fucked with that too. And by the time it got to the deadline, we didn't have a choice but to try to make the moves that we did. And I said it on the trade deadline one, but that moving on from Quacky was one of the most demotivating and demoralizing trades that I think I've ever had to be a part of. That
Yeah, Quacky
really,
rules.
yeah, that really kind of sucked.
Going from playing with Quacky to not playing with Quacky, there's not a lot worse you can do, I imagine.
Yeah, one of my favorite players to play with of all time, if not my number one favorite. I absolutely love Quacky, and not getting the opportunity to finish out the season with him or try to fix the issues we were having, that really sucked. So it was really disappointing to have to do that, but we made those trades to, ironically, go for a more balanced approach, like what we've been talking about a lot so far, balance out the team a little bit more so that we weren't as heavy on offense and selling out on offense all the time to be able to find wins. And I think in total, like you said, it was an improvement. We were better for it, but we are certainly still nowhere near the level that we were at the start of the season, and I don't think this lineup has the potential to get back to that level, because that level was like a 6 goals per game team, and this team will never be that. That's not to say this team can't win or this team can't be good or anything like that, but just let's be real. This is not a team that's going to generate 6 goals a game. It's just not going to happen. We don't have the offensive
Hey, nice job
talent
finishing
to do
plus
that.
forward, by the way, Dial, compared to the rest of this team.
Thank you. I had to work
MVP.
hard for that,
Second place by a mile. 10 miles.
Yeah.
25,000 miles.
Good stuff.
Now, more accurately, 46 points or so, or whatever it is. But
yeah, I think if we had another true defenseman to play on defense instead of Cap there, not to say that Cap was bad or anything. Again,
well,
I feel like that words it poorly, right? But Cap is not a natural defenseman. Cap is a forward playing defense. And I think if we had somebody that was more ready to be a defenseman or more like mentally there, that it would have made things a little bit easier for Marchie to adjust to. But I also think that Marchie really needed to have pushed a lot harder to figure out how to play with Cap. And the fact that he was so resistant to practicing, resistant to playing in scrims, resistant to like warming up or learning anything, also had a negative impact, because it makes it a lot harder for Cap to find a way to fit in with him. So I think there's blame to go around on all facets there. But unfortunately, with the team we had, that's what we had to work with. And ultimately, as much as it sucked to make those trades, like we kind of had to at that point.
I feel like Marchie also felt a lot of like pressure on him to perform as well, though, like just mentally. He probably felt like he had to do a lot for you guys, or was getting blamed.
Marchie? Yeah. I mean, Marchie was in a tough spot. Like, he had to be the number one defenseman and had to carry another defenseman with him and play around him when he's never really had to do that as much before. And so there was a lot more expectation on him to be like the best version that he could be. And I'm sure that to a certain extent was a bit of a demotivating factor for him. I'm sure that's like, it's difficult for some people to handle having to be the focal point on a team, or having to be a focal point on a team. And in the same way that it's difficult for somebody who's played forward for their entire career to have to completely switch mindsets and start playing defense. It's not an easy transition for anybody to make.
Unless you can do it from one day to the next.
Yes.
Being
yes.
told you're
but
playing
you
D one
have
day
played a lot
and
more defense in the LHL than Cap has, so I gotta throw Cap a bone there. So
yeah, D, it's kind of easy. Austin gets it. It's kind of for babies.
Yeah,
babies first HQM.
Jesus.
Oh well.
Anyway.
Yeah. So yeah, now you end up. By the way, on stream, I'll call you. You should switch Kiwi and Cap. Cap should play forward. Kiwi should be on D. Kiwi should be on D, and Cap should be on forward.
Yeah, I heard you. Yeah. Yep.
Sorry, I was clearing my throat.
Yeah, we tried one scrim of that, and then one scrim of the reverse of that, which is what we do right now, and we just stuck with that for the time being. So yeah. That's been.
I think you should switch it.
Doc starting. Hello.
Is Doc gonna start? Is Doc starting? Fuck. He looked good. Like it wasn't just like he turned one over badly, but like
he was never gonna be a puck handling goalie anyway.
Yeah, that's not like he was making saves and shit. That was good stuff by Doc. on that
Yeah,
last
I mean,
day.
there's definitely, like that's something you have to consider going into the playoffs because Skis is another one of the goalies this season. You can kind of lump him in with Goose there in terms of somebody who really didn't play as well as they're capable of, and it definitely would have made a difference for us as a team in the same way as it would have for all of us to play to the level that we needed to play to or that we're capable of playing to, and we just couldn't really find a way to hit that with Skis this season. Just like we couldn't find a way to get that out of Cap or out of Quacky or out of fucking Marchie or even myself. Like I think this is the first time in 5v5 I've had less than 4 shots a game.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Finishes with 99 shots and
Yeah.
wants to.
But like I
season.
typically have like 4.5 to 5 shots a game. So I mean that's an extra,
get better.
That's an extra half a goal per game that we're not getting because I wasn't able to generate those extra shots. So there's issues across the board there that really sort of came to a head when the spotlight was on us, so to speak, during that skid. So anyway, all right, shall we move on to New Jersey?
Yeah.
Final team?
Hell yeah.
All right, how we doing on Mike Tyson?
So Tyson main fight is until 11 p.m. It was just the pay-per-view started at 9. I thought all the garbage would be done by
We got a few more hours. Let's go.
That is
yeah, we got a
terrible.
few more hours in us, huh? I also haven't eaten yet. It's 9 o'clock. But...
Yeah, I do need to eat something at some point here soon too.
You haven't eaten yet? What's the matter with you?
Well, I ate like lunch/dinner at like 4.
Oh,
so,
there you go.
It was a little weird. But I was hanging out with friends, and one of our friends was like, "Do you guys want 5 Guys right now?" And we were like, "Yeah, fuck it, let's go get 5 Guys."
Oh man, I wish I had 5 Guys.
It was good.
Fuck.
It's good. Cajun fries.
Yeah, I bet. Fuck.
Hell yeah.
There's now a 5 Guys podcast in New Jersey. Doesn't get talked about.
Yeah.
This team's got 5 guys.
Okay, so yeah, this team does have 5 guys, but it has 2 pretty big guys, if you know what I'm saying.
Burgers and fries themselves in KS Auto and PK.
Yep. And Austin's bringing the milkshakes. So
Austin and Marchie are like the peanuts you get.
No, Marchie's the peanuts. Austin's at least the milkshake. You got to give him something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Austin's the milkshake. Marchie's like the peanuts that get stepped on the floor.
No.
Austin's he's like the peanuts in the box he can get, but Marchie's the ones that fell on the floor and are getting stepped on, and you're thinking, could I eat that? Probably shouldn't. No,
that's disgusting.
Yeah, I know. Marchie's sickening.
He is.
Marchie's a good player.
If Marchie were to ever listen to this, I would have went on longer.
So I agree. I think Marchie I think Marchie is a good player, but I think Marchie is more reliant on the team around him than some of the other high caliber players are.
And more than he used to be is the thing.
Yes,
he used to the team. He could prop up the team. Now he doesn't really do that, but he's still capable of fitting.
Exactly. He still is a very proficient and good player, and is somebody that I was very disappointed to not have on the team anymore. But I think at this point in his career, he needs to be in the right environment in order for him to be, truly successful as an individual player. And I just don't think we had that environment for him as soon as Guy was off the ice here in Colorado. I think Guy was actually a good fit for him, ironically, but yeah, he needed something that we weren't capable of giving him. And I think playing alongside Austin is really a big difference maker, or is going to be a big difference maker in terms of his ability to contribute and be the player that he needs to. And like Austin said, it takes a lot of the pressure off as well that he had to deal with when he was playing on our team. It's never an easy thing having to be a focal point, and now he doesn't have to do that anymore. So it's an environment that's much more well suited to individual success. And if you want to chat about that a little bit more, team success anyway, you guys won all 8 of your games after the trade deadline, every single one of them in regulation. And during that time, you guys gave up 18 goals and scored 48.
that good?
Plus 30 to close out the season. That's awesome.
Yes. So, I mean, that in itself is just fucking insanity. Um, is bonkers the level that you guys were able to, take your team to at that point. But I mean, it kind of makes sense. You traded for the best goalie in the league, traded for an incredibly good defenseman who already fits well alongside of you in particular,
Yeah.
and traded for a forward that works better with Otto than what you were getting out of Ike previously. So yeah, plus 30 over those 6 games or 8 games. And given that you scored 48, you guys were scoring on average 6 goals a game on average. And giving up on average only, would that be 3 goals a game? No, less than that. 2.25, I think it is.
Hell yeah.
So, like, your average margin of victory was almost 4 goals.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think there's
pretty
much. I don't think there's much else you can say to that than what we just captured there.
Team good.
Yeah, team incredibly good. I mean, we only got to see them for 8 games, but could you imagine if it was a full season of that? I mean, I think Otto would have hit like 150 points.
Oh my god, yeah.
I could have had Marchie. I could have had this team just without trades, but I didn't pick them.
There's a good start. I mean, like I think the people in our little group know it. I don't know. I would say it on the Faceoff. I'll say it now. Who gives a shit? Is going against my own judgment during that draft when the picks came up there in that 4th round. I think it went Austin, you picked, and then Cap picked, and then you picked again.
Yeah,
right?
I was debating. Yeah.
Yeah, and he wanted Ike and Marchie, and I told him pick Marchie first because there is a 0% chance Cap is going to take Ike, and you'll be able to guarantee Ike because I knew they would pick. There was at least a chance they were going to take Marchie, and then Otto told Austin, no, make sure we get Ike, just draft him here, and so he takes Ike, and fucking Marchie, lo and behold, gets drafted to Cap's team.
Yeah, but I will just blame Otto. It's all him. Nothing on me.
It was
Nothing
his
on me.
fault. But I knew, like, I was talking to Austin when the pick happened. I was like, dude, there's no, like, you got to take Marchie first because they won't take Ike. They will take Marchie. Yeah.
Yep.
Because they already had, not only did you have Dial and Quacky, they already had the forwards, but, like,
we needed another defenseman, yeah.
Needed a defenseman bad. And, like,
there's no way
you're not
going
to take Ike for the, like, perceived value, and Ike wouldn't even, like, play on the team. Like, you'd be taking a 4th rounder to be trade bait. Like, that's,
trade bait, yep.
Yeah. So that's, like, I don't know.
So while you guys were looking at that, I did a little bit more research here. So New Jersey, as I said, scored 48 goals to 18 over that, like, 8-game spread. LA as a team scored 51 goals this season over the whole 25-game season. So in 8 games, you guys almost outscored LA over the course of 25 games.
I've outscored a couple teams by himself.
Yeah,
he did, yeah, which is another thing to get into. I mean, we've kind of just been leaving it on the side because it's just so, set in stone or so obvious that, like, he's insane. But there was only one team that scored more goals than Otto did, and that was Colorado. Every other team in the league scored less than Otto did by himself.
That's awesome. You know what, though?
And if Otto didn't have any assists this season, he still would have been 18 points higher than second place.
Otto rules.
With 0 assists.
Otto, awesome. Just like the clear number one, just dominant. I believe Otto is so good for this game and this league, like the LHL, to have him there to really, like, show you just like, hey, like, you got to play against this guy's out there.
Yep.
Like, this, it's just, I don't know, it's really good.
Otto
I don't
think
dislike playing against. I said that wasn't on stream, but I said there were a couple good players I like playing against. I left Otto off, but he's another guy I kind of do. I like playing against Otto.
I think Otto, Guy, and Juice, and Matt previously when he was playing the game, I think the 4 of them demonstrate what the pinnacle of playing hockey ? Could be. And I know obviously people are going to look at that and be like, I can't believe you're lumping those people in with Otto, right? But they like the three of them all show the peak of the game or the peak of the mechanics of the game in ways that Otto doesn't. Like they all have their own dynamic ability to be incredible game changers beyond just deking around people and scoring, right? But
Yeah.
those are the type of guys that give you
They all
something to
make us
strive
look
for.
like shit. Like,
Exactly. They
it's
give you
awesome.
something to to work towards, to strive towards. They give you the motivation to show you what is possible and what you're capable of, and that's something that always interests me individually as like somebody just playing the game. Like it's cool to see what the high end could be, you know. It's cool to be like, oh, I want to get that good. And being able to watch players like that and watch players like Otto have such incredibly dominant seasons, as unfun as it is to play against, it is sort of a, you know, a special thing to just kind of sit back and look at and be like, holy shit. Like sometimes you just have to
awesome.
appreciate the level of ability that some people have, and being able to watch that firsthand it's a special thing. So
yeah, like not to, because it's totally different, and it's so I think it's kind of dumb to compare it, but like if you're looking at like real sports and like you're looking at the NHL, for example, like I used to, when I was a kid, I always hated Ovi, you know, big Penguins fan. Obviously it's like, oh, fuck Ovechkin, but like now the last few years it's been like, this is insane. Like what a treat, like to see a dude scoring 50 goals every year. Like that's nuts.
Yep.
It's great. Like it's like things like that is like, even if it's against you, you're still like, you can appreciate it, and it's something like playing this game, which is such a difficult game. It's such a high skill cap. To see Otto pull off a season like he had, I was rooting for him to hit 100 points. Like fuck, I wanted.
We were all sitting in the Colorado Discord watching the final game against Toronto, literally counting the points. Yeah, and he got to 100 points in like the middle of the first period. It was pretty funny.
Then he gets another 5 on top of it just for good measure.
Yeah.
Like just so it doesn't look like he barely scraped die. It looks like he
He almost pissed that game away.
I mean, he smashed it. So, you know, you just
like you can't piss games away without it. That's the dream. That's
you
can
just
piss it away as all you want. He can still score fucking 6 more points at any time.
You just got to tip your cap sometimes, you know, and that's, you know, you're talking about like Ovi in hockey. For me, it was Peyton Manning in football. I fucking hated seeing Peyton Manning be successful as a Patriots fan. Obviously, like Patriots and Colts were, you know, the two main and the Steelers main representatives for the AFC for most of the Super Bowls in the 2000s so far. So it always drove me nuts when he would win, or like watching him win his first Super Bowl against the Bears or whatever was probably as frustrating for me, or close to as frustrating for me as it was for Guy. As a Bears fan, but yeah, I mean, it's sort of one of those things where, you know, in the moment you hate it and you hate everything about it and you want them to not be successful, but at a certain point you eventually kind of just take a step back and just kind of appreciate it for what it is.
That's kind of how I feel about the Caps win. Now.
Yeah,
like I was so like rattled that I was like, fuck them.
I still haven't gotten over that one yet, but
I'm not totally over it. But I still wish they had lost. But it is good that Ovi won.
It's one of those where, like, if you're truly a fan,
in the same way, that's why I'm rooting for Otto to win the cup.
If you're truly a fan
God bless PK.
If you're truly a fan of the game and a fan of like competition and whatnot, then I think to some aspect you should always be able to appreciate the other competitors around you that are able to reach that level, even if it frustrates the hell out of you to see it. It's a special thing, and it's really cool to be able to witness it firsthand, even when it's 5 goals in the back of your own net. You know, it's cool to be able to say.
I wonder how many of those he put up against us. You know, and it's.
Oh yeah. He feasted on Colorado.
Yeah.
If we had the per game splits, he'd probably have like a third of his points this season against our team easily. So
bet you he had 12 points against poor old Eric.
Yeah. Rest in peace, Ricky.
R.I.P. Eric. He's banned from his guild because he let Dyal die 5 times in a row.
Yeah.
We talking about that on when's the I guess
when's the WoW face-off coming out? Yeah, well, maybe when the whole community's playing Shadowlands together.
Yeah, that's happening now.
But you know what's going to happen? It's going to be like BFA, where I'm going to get on. It's been a week, right? I'm going to get back on after not being on for a week, and all you fuckers are going to be gone after being like, oh, yeah, let's all play
You made us
BFA
stop.
together.
You broke
I did
your
not make...
computer and we had to stop.
No.
We had to stop.
No. This is exactly why I'm not playing Shadowlands with you fuckers right now. If you guys actually play and keep playing, I will make a character and come play with you. But I'm not
if you buy
going
me
to...
Shadowlands, I'll play forever.
No, you will not play forever. You'll play for a fucking
I would owe
week.
you. I would owe
Didn't
you.
he,
I would
didn't he
have to
buy
play
you
forever.
BFA?
I think
No,
I did
no.
buy him BFA.
No, you told me
you bought someone
no,
BFA.
He told me he would, and then he didn't.
I told you, wasn't
I had
it
to do something, and I never
wasn't
did
it that each of you guys that was playing it or something like that, if you hit the max level and did like a dungeon with us, I would pay for your sub or something?
Oh yeah, it was
wasn't
the
that
was
the
BFA.
deal I
It was if
offered?
I hit max level.
Yeah.
I hit max level. I cheated.
Yeah, you cheated. That doesn't count.
I
Austin was the
120
only
now.
one who got close. He was the only one who actually leveled up enough on his own to get close to it, but none of you did it. That's how confident I was that you guys weren't going to play.
It's easier to do that in
I
Shadowlands
offered
now,
to
though. It's
pay
like
for your
babies first level
subs if you hit max level, and fucking none of you did it.
I didn't want the $18 that bad.
Yeah,
The 15
that's what I
or
thought.
whatever. 18
That's
Canadian.
what I thought. Anyway. Okay, so we've gone through all the teams. Should we do a quick playoff thing?
We can talk about
Lucic
Lucic first, I think. Lucic.
Lucic?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Lucic. You talk about Lucic. He's pretty good.
He's playing. He's playing
he
the
is
game.
He's doing better than I did on our team, actually.
He's playing, and he's not getting in Otto's way. That's about all I can say
He's
for him.
scoring more than I did.
Yeah.
So individually, he is playing a lot better than I think any of us expected him to. And I think...
I'd say he's putting
honestly,
up more points than anybody expected.
Yes, I think
points
even Austin, I think you would be
he's kind of
lying.
playing how I think this was the high end of what we could expect from him.
I think you would be lying, Austin, if you said you thought he'd play as well as he's playing right now.
I didn't think he was going to score more than Ike did, but I'm glad he is doing
obviously.
So.
Yeah. I mean, it's a net win for you, but yeah, it definitely, as bad as you feel for Tidge and Ike and Narg in that situation, I know that deal was difficult for you to make.
Yeah.
I know that was, really
Feels
tough
good
to
for
have
Lucic,
to say that. But I mean, you made the right deal for the team. You did exactly what a GM should do. You went out and made the most competitively, enticing trade that you could and took it. And it's worked out for you. So I think everything you did was right, even if it does suck from like an interpersonal perspective.
Really hope we win it for PK. That's the big
Yeah.
Yeah, if we don't win, I want to see PK
I'm rooting for
win
New
one.
Jersey. I want Otto and PK to win. Austin's a bastard. Archie's a rat boy, but Otto, I love Otto and PK.
Yeah, I definitely want to see Otto rewarded for his season, and I would love to see PK also rewarded for his season.
Yeah,
which is,
two guys who had some of the best. PK, he's above and beyond best goalie this season. I think being 8% or 7% higher than the next full, except Doc's the real king at 71. But PK just had the nastiest, most consistent season I've ever maybe.
Yeah, it's up there.
Maybe he's
it's
missing
the
super highs of the Fat Squirrel season or the maybe Kiwi or Meat occasionally, but in terms of just he was on a bad team doing that, and then he got on a good team, and it didn't change.
It's one of the best seasons we've ever seen, particularly in 5v5. He has earned, in the same way that Otto has, earned every accolade that's going to come his way, and every single appraisal that will come his way too, because he was fantastic, and the two of them on the same team now is incredibly fucking scary. And I think we can sort of lead into the playoff predictions here with that too. I mean, Austin, obviously you believe that New Jersey's going to win, right?
Yes.
Tony, as a
If he
completely,
didn't, that'd be
as a completely unbiased perspective, I'm sure you agree with that, right?
After
You
a
think
whole
New Jersey
season, I
is,
finally came off Colorado.
He doesn't believe in Colorado anymore. Way to go, Dial. And that's your fault.
That was my prediction at the start of the season as well. I was the only team against my own.
If I would just score, more than 4 a game, then we probably would still be a favorite for it. And I can't really blame anybody for that except for myself. So that's that's on me.
Yeah.
But
it is on you. And maybe the other members of the team. But you
it is on me.
Yeah, no, I imagine Toronto doesn't get bowled over, but I'm gonna pick New Jersey because they got Otto and PK.
Yeah, I don't
Yeah.
think the regular season series between them is really going to be ultra applicable here, just because the lineup is so different now with these different players in it. Obviously, Toronto has had success against Otto. Bird has had success against him in net and whatnot. So I think they'll be able to keep the games more competitive than I think Boston or Colorado would. Like, I think this is the best matchup, or I guess from a New Jersey perspective, the worst matchup that they could have in the playoffs, given the teams that are remaining. But I don't think it's going to be too much for them to handle. And I think for you guys to lose that series, it's basically going to take that. It's going to take New Jersey losing it and not Toronto winning it, if that makes sense. Like, I think
Otto and PK have to both shit the bed.
Yeah, they have to. One of them maybe. But they have to have 4 bad games together in order for you guys to lose that series. And it doesn't mean that Toronto's not going to win games or something. I think we're looking at probably like a 6-game series would be probably reasonable for that one. But if Otto and PK are bringing their A game, we could absolutely see a full playoff sweep from New Jersey, and I wouldn't be at all shocked.
Confident in my team than you are against Toronto. I feel like
I think Toronto's going to win. I think the games will probably be close enough, but I wouldn't bet on Toronto.
I wouldn't be surprised for us to take it in 4 or 5, but they're a team, so they could still win.
They are a team.
They are a team.
They are a team.
They are a team in the league.
I think the best matchup we'll see all playoffs is going to be the other one, the Boston Colorado. I think that'll be a more interesting one. Probably closer, lower scoring. Probably.
Yes, I agree.
Probably a 6-7 game series.
Yeah, and I think the part of the problem with the regular season series between all these teams is how many trades these teams went through. All 4 of these teams look reasonably different or significantly different in some cases than they did at the start of the season. The lone exception of that maybe being Toronto, but you could argue that individual trade that they made is more impactful on its own for just that one player than the trades on the other teams. I mean, that was a really big difference in the way that their team approaches and plays the game now. Anyway, all that aside, I agree. I think the Boston and Colorado matchup is going to be hopefully much more entertaining from a spectator standpoint anyway. Obviously, fingers crossed that we come out on the winning side of that one. But, it's tough to evaluate that one right now. If you look at the course of the whole season, our head-to-head with them was, I believe it was 3-2 in our favor. But the last 2 games that we played against them, which involved the current lineups that we had, they won 9-3 and fucking 4-0. So we're not exactly talking about ideal scenarios here. The 9-3 game, actually, forgive me, that happened before the trade deadline. That was when Quacky wasn't there, and we had, I think, Doc and Payne on defense, and then Cap and myself on offense. And
no, Doc didn't skate.
Then I can't. Oh, Marchie was still on the team. Duh. Yeah, it was Marchie and Payne. So that one, I don't know if you can really factor in because that was again a completely different team that we had. But really, the main one I guess to look at is the 4-0 game that came on the last day of the season.
It didn't look good. No,
it did not look good for us, and they didn't have Dalfan there for that game, which makes it look even worse for us. So I think it's reasonable to look at that as somebody that's a just unbiased spectator and think that Boston likely could come out the victor in this series and probably is the favorite right now, I would think, from a community perspective.
I think
I would pick Boston. I think
you just gotta get not scored on the first 6 seconds of the game might be the play.
Well,
you swap Cap and Kiwi, goddammit.
I brought that up earlier, right? That's the problem we run into when we get scored on early and we have to play from behind early. We do not handle that well at all. And obviously the team is a lot different now than that team was, so I assume we'd be a lot better at it than we were back then. But still, that's been the best way to beat Colorado this season is to get an early lead, because we just are incapable of overcoming that. So,
Of course, you got to be careful about Dial, old dangerous Dial.
yeah.
You tend to get on rolls. I could see you winning a game or two on your own here
Yeah.
if you're getting the puck.
Winning a game or two
big
is well, no comment. Winning a game or two is one thing, but winning 4 games is what matters. So we're gonna need to be capable of winning all 4. Definitely makes me wish we had
that's
Dye
what
still.
Doc's for. Doc's gonna win the others for you. No, my bet Boston, but swap. Cap Kiwi, maybe go Doc, and we'll see a nasty little Colorado team that might be able to go on a run here.
I don't believe in you, Dow. I think you're gonna win.
Well, somebody does, not me though. Not me. You're gonna let me down again. Well, actually, you can't let me down if I pick against you.
Sorry, I'm eating some Laffy Taffy as we chat here. I'm getting hungry.
I wish I was eating. Me too.
Anyway, yeah, I mean, I certainly think that should, without a doubt, in my mind, be a 6 or 7 game series. I don't really see a world where it isn't. I think it's 2 pretty evenly matched teams and well-constructed teams on both sides. So I'm definitely looking forward to it. Like I said before when we were talking about Boston, I think their team lives or dies by Sully and Paco. And I think our team is going to live or die by whoever's in net for us and myself. So, yeah, it's gonna be a fun time. Sully and Paco and Dalfin are all people that are difficult to play against. I don't ever come off the ice after playing them and be like, "Oh, that was easy." Like that's never ever happened before. So, they're certainly a team that I think matches up well against us too, with having like a defensively responsible forward and a good goaltender and whatnot. So it's a good matchup for them, and I think it should at least bring us some exciting games to watch, if nothing else. So
You really gotta hope playoff Sully shows up and not mid-season Sully.
yeah, I'm rooting for playoff Sully and not Scrim Paco, because I heard Scrim Paco's a god. So we need not Scrim Paco.
Scrim Squad.
That's gonna be a comeback for this playoffs. Yeah, you're gonna play.
Anyway,
Your
okay,
time
so
is still here.
let's
If
chat real quick
I don't know,
about.
if he'd put up the sign-ups right when I was talking about how much I love Otto, maybe I would have signed up, but it passed. There's 10 seconds there when I was talking about how much I love Otto hitting 100 points.
Yeah.
There's the high. There's the high. The high I was riding.
So
It's gone.
I'm gonna make a bold prediction here, and we're gonna assume that New Jersey's gonna win and completely skip talking about any playoff scenario that involves Toronto. But in the event that New Jersey does win, between New Jersey and Boston and New Jersey and Colorado, which one
New
of
Jersey
those do you
wins.
guys think?
Either of those.
I wasn't even gonna
Not a
ask that,
question. Yeah.
but which do you think's a better matchup for the finals to give us some more exciting games?
I think Boston, just because of the trade angle, that'd be cool. But like on ice, I don't know, probably similar. It doesn't matter.
Purely results, I think Boston, because we won 5-4 against them in a game where they didn't have 2 of their players. They had Pera and Gregors playing for them, and we only squeaked out a victory in that one.
Yeah.
Post trade too.
Sad.
So your record against them was 4-1 with a +8 goal differential in the season. Ours was 3-2. So just to put that ours was 3-2. You guys won 3 against us, but with a +13 goal differential. So,
Hell yeah. Yeah, no. Honestly, a Toronto and whatever other team would be the more interesting finals. But
yes, I think Toronto plus whichever of our matchup would definitely give us the most exciting finals to watch. But I think the likelihood of that happening is very low. So
Otto could chase more records. You never know. Could be chasing some playoff records coming up here.
What he has like all the records. What is there left for him to set?
He's gonna beat his own records.
Yeah. That's
He's
pretty much
chasing
all there is
himself,
at this
really.
point.
The ghost.
Now the real question is this the last season of 5v5?
Didn't sound like it when
I
I was
hope
talking
not.
to them yesterday. No, yeah, I would.
I've heard some mixed reactions. I haven't heard anybody that outright said like, no, we should not do 6v6, but it's either been, oh, 6v6 was fine, I didn't really notice a difference, uh,
I love
or
6v6.
I love 6v6.
Yeah,
Yeah, it was pretty much one or the other. So
I kind of.
I don't know if that's
Playing it.
enough of
I'm in the.
a,
I'm closer in the. I don't really. It's not too different, but also I didn't really like it. But I also don't really like 5v5. So like, what the fuck does that say? I kind of don't
it
like the game. Is the thing.
personally, it won't change whether or not I sign up. It's not going to have an impact on that at
No,
all.
yeah. I mean, yeah. It doesn't fucking. I don't want to play
I
particularly. So like, it doesn't really. It doesn't matter to me.
My main
Pardon me.
argument against it is that I think too many people look at hockey question mark like it's a replica of ice hockey, which is
Yeah.
not the case. This game and the mechanics of it is way, way, way closer to ball hockey or roller hockey than it is to ice hockey, where games are played
Yeah.
actually 5v5 and are played in a situation where you don't have lateral movement because the way fucking roller skates work, right? So that's not really a thing that you can do super well. So it's a much better translation to try and mimic ball hockey, in my opinion, than it is to try to mimic the ice hockey element of it. And I think pushing the game to be more like ice hockey is getting it away from what it
What it
more
is.
accurately represents and what it is.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's necessarily a positive. And I think if we're, as a community, if we're making a change for the sake of making a change to make things more interesting, I don't really see I don't see
Yeah.
that being a positive thing. Like if we have to change the way the base mechanics of the game work to keep people interested in it, we have a bigger problem than whether or not it's 5v5 or 6v6.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't.
So,
To me, it doesn't seem like a change worth making. Not that I'm entirely opposed to it either, but like from the same perspective, I guess I wouldn't change it just because it doesn't. I don't like see enough of a reason to. Like
yeah.
getting an extra guy in the ice, sure, but like they're less involved. You're not as involved the more guys you add on the ice. Like
It
if
takes you out of
you
the
know,
play a lot more.
yeah,
I can definitely see how it could make the game a
it'd
little
be
less
very
fun to
bad for
play.
I
defense
felt
to
very
play it.
useless
Yes.
playing in that.
Well,
I did
yeah,
too,
'cause
and I had like
less.
6 goals. I had
yeah.
6 goals in the first game, and it was like this is worthless. Like
Yeah.
I'm not doing anything. Like it was, I don't know.
It definitely, given that you have less puck time and less puck possession, you feel a lot less invested and involved in the game. I certainly agree with that. I
Yeah,
actually
a
think
lot of
if
clutter, and you can't really pass. I think as much as people like if you're on a really good team with a lot of like guys catching passes and shit, but like just the way the game works and the way the skill works, like receiving is definitely what people are the worst at in this game in general,
well, that's
and
the thing. It's like
So all the passing
passing.
plays they don't really happen like people
Exactly.
kind of think they do.
Like passing and receiving is ultimately just, honestly, it's too difficult, especially in like shorter range situations. It's really hard a lot of the time to get like a good short range pass off and then also get a proper receive off to the point where you can do anything with it afterwards. Like that's a tough thing to do. And when you add in an extra player for both teams, now you have even less space to get those things working. And yeah, it looks awesome when it happens, but it's going to miss more often than not because of just the nature of the difficulty of the game itself. Cap's mentioning, doing it for sort of innovation, like adding new innovations to the games, kind of trying to change the way that people play the game.
Yeah,
I
except
actually
it doesn't
think,
do the innovation he expected
exactly,
it to.
exactly. So, well, but what he's saying there is
Yeah,
that
that would be it. That would be the reason
that was
to
the
do
idea,
it.
exactly, right? And I think personally, offsides and icing would do more to change the way that the game is played and add more innovation than just adding a sixth person onto the ice for both teams.
Mm-hmm.
Because that, like, adding a sixth person onto the ice will change how people position themselves a little bit. Positioning will be like different when you're setting up in the offensive zone and the defensive zone and whatnot. But it's not going to change like fundamentally how people like try to break out and stuff like that as much. But the transition
You're still
game
either
and the
skating it out or
breakouts and
long bombing it for the most
exactly,
part. You're
exactly.
not going
Like
to
that's
pass
not
it
going to be
three
different.
times side to side up the ice
Yeah,
quickly.
the
just
conversion
'cause of
rate
how
of
the
that is
game
just too
works.
low. It just doesn't work like that.
Yeah.
So I think offsides and icing would do more to change that, or force people into different methods than what they're used to, because that actually functionally changes one of the most impactful ways that we play the transition game, the sort of the long stretch pass, right? Like that is a fundamental part of hockey, and is something that has been happening for forever. And I'm not just talking about people cherry picking, but like going for the long stretch passes even when there's a defenseman back there. Like it's something that you don't ever experience in a real hockey game because of the offsides and icing. And if you really want to change the way the game is played, that would do more to cut that out entirely and then force people to find other avenues of generating offense like that. Now, I personally think there aren't really better ways of generating offense that you could replace that with outright.
You're skating, your juice
Yeah,
out,
exactly.
It's going down. Like it doesn't change how they're gonna play.
Yeah,
They just need
I don't. I don't think it really adds
way.
anything as much as it just takes away the long stretch pass, and not much really changes there. So even that I wouldn't say is necessarily an innovative change, but I think that is more impactful than just adding a sixth person in.
Yeah,
And if
I
you're
agree.
looking at making a change to make an impact, that has a larger potential to do that than just saying, oh, well, there's a sixth guy now. So I'm interested to see what they end up doing for next season and what the community really wants. I mean, I know it sounds like we're going to be trying 6v6 more in a tournament type thing, so it might wind up being something that gets implemented regardless just because. So, I mean, I don't entirely agree with that, but I think that's what's coming down the line. It certainly seems like that might be the case, especially if the 6v6 tournament off-season thing goes at least well enough.
Yeah. What I don't know if I was talking to you about it though. I was just saying this. Austin, I'm sure I was that one of you I would have already said this to, so sorry, but I was and we were talking about less touches is one thing for new players and recruiting. I am of the opinion that a new player league or whatever it is that's set up for them should be fewer players. It should be
Yep.
3v3 or 4v4
Yep.
just to get them more
Puck
touches.
Yep.
Yeah,
Agreed.
and just like open up because I think the JSL being 5v5 was a bigger mistake than any other problems the JSL had.
No, I completely agree
Was
with that because
yeah.
you have to learn how to play the game first before you learn how to play the game, if that makes sense.
Yeah, before
right?
yeah.
You need to learn to run or learn to walk before you can run. And if you don't
You
know
need to learn how
how
to skate before you learn how to play in the NHL in a system.
Yep. And if you don't know how to skate, if you don't know how to, get open
Handle
for
the
a
puck.
pass, how to take a shot, how to make a pass, how to like cover someone defensively, if you don't learn the base mechanics of the game, there's no benefit to you learning how to play around other people in a 5v5 scenario, because even if you learn how to play around them, you still don't know how to play the game itself. And if you can't do that, that is the most fundamental part of it, So
Yeah.
I completely agree with that, and I hope whatever new player tournament winds up coming around with the hopefully ensuing somewhat soon recruitment is catered towards that, because I think that gives the highest chance of returning or highest chance of getting people to return is making them feel like they have an impact on the game and making them feel like they're involved and being a part of it, and not spending 12 of the, or 13 of the 15 minutes never touching the puck. That doesn't help.
Yeah, it's 5v5 really sucks for new guys. Like, there's no point. They'd be better off literally in a 3v3, like even with no goalie. Like, it's just like 3v3 or 4v4 with a goalie, and that's kind of what it should be for
Yep.
in terms of getting new players touches, because it's just when there's fewer players on the ice, you're more involved, and what you do matters more. It's just that's the best learning, best practice, getting the
Yep.
puck more, being on a guy with the puck, or being the only option, things like that.
Yep.
Literally, the fewer guys, the better.
Agreed. Austin, you have any thoughts on all that?
I agree about the whole player development type of thing aspect of the players. I think for 6v6, I'd really like to see like better quality of the signups. I'd rather not have like two RSL
6v6 seems
players.
yeah. I know you watch the Sunday night hockey games 6v6, and they kind of look
Yes.
like things don't work. Like they're not
The
executing
scoring was
plays.
a lot like lower than the LHL 6v6 games. That for sure. That's for sure. But
yeah, it's like
I
that's
don't
not
think
what
it
you want
helps
to.
them as much to play the game.
No, it's because I mean, at the same time, you do have to get better at things like that. Like maybe that helps passing and receiving. Like who knows what the benefit of it would be, but it kind of looked shitty. Like just a lower 6v6 at lower
Yeah.
quality looks pretty bad, and like I don't know. It's and I'm also of the opinion that to me the LHL is like that's the high end. You want to play with the best, and it's like if you're kind of hurting that, I don't know. I guess I probably wouldn't switch to 6v6. I guess I like 6v6 or 5v5 more the more I think of it. Not that it's like a game breaker going to 6v6, but
I think it lends itself better to the game of hockey personally, and I
yeah.
think
I mean we've been playing this way for 5 years or
yeah
5.5 years.
yeah
So like
and I think that, like you said, more people having more puck touches is the biggest benefit to the game that we can get. I think 4v4 is too far in the other direction for competitive games because it starts to make them non-competitive. All you have to do is deke around one person and then now you've got a breakaway. Like there's
yeah.
no team play element to it. It's kind of shitty. I think 5v5 is like the perfect like middle ground baseline to satisfy all of that. And I hope they stay with it. Is it the end of the world if they don't? No, they can always go back to 5v5, right? But I personally hope that they wind up choosing to stay with that and that's the format that the LHL continues with in the future. So
The hockey in my college, which was years and years ago, probably 5 years ago that I even looked at that, but it was 4v4 skaters. There was I guess 5v5 with the goalie,
yeah,
and so and I always thought when I saw that I was like, oh, that's nuts, and then like you see it's like, oh, it's actually there's fewer players and more people are getting touches and you're more involved. It was
yep,
actually a pretty cool thing,
yep.
and I don't know. To me, it's similar in HQM. I think I don't know. 6v6 doesn't really hurt the game too badly, but it isn't. I don't know. It isn't something I'd really look at making the LHL into.
I'd really not like to see more than like one new LHL player on
Yeah.
each team.
If
If
there were
the sign-up's got to be better.
if this was a popular game and like there was a really high, if we had like 6 autos, sure, but like I don't know, the level of player.
I mean,
It's kind of sort of knocking everybody. I'm not like shitting on
well, it's
like
not just the
worse
level of
players. It's just the way the game is. It's
it's
like
not just
people
the
aren't good
level or
enough
the
to
number
execute
of
plays.
players.
And there's not enough like
Yeah.
players who are ready to make the jump to LHL.
That's what I was
opinion,
going to say. It's not the level they're at right now or the number of them. It's relative to one another where they are, and there's not enough people, relatively speaking, that are up at the top end of the player perspective to be able to have enough like really good players to go around. And with the sounds of it and all the quality LHL starters from this season that aren't coming back next season, I think even at 5v5 there are going to be some suspect starters, to say the least. And adding 6v6 is going to add a lot more to that.
I think people look around the roster this season and like they say that. So like this was a balanced enough season, but it's going to get worse.
Yes,
I
I
mean,
agree.
maybe it'll get better down the road if the recruitment is successful or whatever. But like for the time being, the league is probably going to look worse and worse.
Yeah, I think
continues.
season 21 is not going to be a season that is remembered fondly. To be honest with you, I don't think it's going.
It's
to
because
be
I didn't play it, and then season 22 when I came back because I forgot how much I hate the game. That's when they're gonna be like, yeah, it was Tony came back.
Season 21 is going to be like the rebuild year for your favorite sports team. It's going to be like that. That's going to be season 21. So I'd say get ready for it. We're probably not going to have a ultra competitive season. We're probably not going to
one
have
good team smashing.
Yeah, like we're probably going to have a lot of imbalance to it. There's probably going to be a number of players starting that shouldn't be, and a number of players that bail out that you wish were still there. So I don't want to be a Debbie Downer or anything and say that that's the future, but I think in the short term anyway, that's sort of that's what we're looking at. We're looking down the barrel of the gun there, and it's going to depend on how well this recruitment goes and whether or not the sort of veteran incentive to return winds up becoming enough to to justify, or for them to justify coming back to help fill out these spots a bit more while some of these guys develop. And, we'll see how that pans out. So
I think Migo's mod thing is going pretty well. That would be a pretty big boost for the game, I think.
yes, I agree.
You know, it would be a good boost in terms of recruitment is, did we ever fix that issue where your computer thinks the game's a virus?
No.
So
No.
maybe we should hold off on recruitment until we can fix that. I was just thinking that. I
Or
don't know
something
why
like
I forgot
55F
about
like
that.
we used to play.
That's
God,
definitely a
send them
little bit
single
sus.
tick.
We used to all fucking play 55F.
It's garbage, though.
Oh, Caps doesn't flag anymore.
Oh,
I hope it
flawless.
doesn't. But I don't know if
Well.
we can. I don't know if we can actually say that that's the case for everybody. But anyway,
Let's hope.
all right. So let's call it there. We've done a solid 2 hours and 20
2.5
minutes
hours.
after I said we were gonna do. Just
We're going to be done 51
we're gonna be
minutes
done
ago.
at 1 hour or 1.5 hours. So per usual, I've completely lied to everybody about the length of time that this would run and fucked everybody over. So I'm not
That is
sorry.
what happened.
I'm not even a little bit sorry, but we've learned a valuable lesson today, which is never trust my judgment of time. Ever.
Yeah.
Apparently
Come on,
it's just
people.
utter shit. So, yeah, with that, any closing thoughts on the regular season of season 20 here that we haven't touched on, guys?
I'm gonna win. And New Jersey sweeping the awards.
I could see that. All the big ones.
All of them.
All of them. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what all the awards are off the top of my head, so I don't know. Yeah, oops, we didn't do awards voting.
That's
Not-
fine. We'll
Not
do
that
it
we need
later.
to vote on
Not a
20 of
huge
them.
deal.
The playoffs are gonna taint
I don't
people's
I don't
opinions.
think so.
Oh no, Otto put up 5 a game in the playoffs.
Yeah, I don't really think that that's going to make too big of a difference. So anyway, okay. Well, thanks for everybody that tuned in, and thank you to everybody that watches this on the replay. We'll do at least one more episode. I don't know whether we'll do 2. We'll either do a pre-finals one or we'll do a post-finals one, but we will not have one next weekend. So, yeah. So we'll see. I will announce in the HQM Discord or whatever when it comes time for us to figure out when we're going to do that next one. I think probably makes more sense to do a post-finals one, Tony. What do you think?
Yeah, makes
Do
more
like
sense.
do like a full season recap, announce the awards and shit like that, and we'll do after the finals are over.
Sure, why not?
Okay, so plan for that, and yeah, best of luck to all the remaining teams. My team in particular, best of luck to us. Hopefully, we have the best luck of all. And Otto just
Best of luck, Otto. Don't let PK down.
hopefully Otto's internet service provider just shits out, and
No.
that's the end of it.
Gotta get PK his one.
Kiwi's gonna have to stop paying for his mudfish if they roll up against each other in the finals.
Yep, yeah, that'll be a little
I'll
awkward.
pay for it.
Oh, careful, he'll hold you to that.
Anyway, okay, so yeah, have a great rest of the playoffs. Those
I
of
hope
you who
you
are
don't.
still in, and to those who are not still in, congrats on an early off
Please
season.
sign up.
Thank God. I don't have to dread. It's actually a blessing missing the playoffs. I don't have to play anymore.
All right, so with that, everybody
Winning,
have a
you
great
wouldn't
one,
do
and
that.
we will see you guys in about 2 weeks.
Yeah, maybe.